I don't know if you guys noticed, but I got hate. I got hate. If you noticed on my recent YouTube video, people were upset. Really mad. Really mad and upset that I confused Kaisa for Morgana. This is bad. That is the worst thing I could have ever done. Ever. Like, I am so sorry. I apologize that I am uneducated in the League of Legends lore. In the aspects of League of Legends. I did not know. I play the game, but I don't know anything about the game. How could I? How can I do that? How can I play a video game and then not know about the video game and stream it and claim that I like the game? I can't do that. Ain't no way. This is not it. Because of that, I said, you know what? The haters are right. The haters are right. I shouldn't be a fucking uneducated piece of shit on League if I play the game. So I thought to myself, what did I do wrong? And what can I do to solve this problem? I'll learn the lore. So, what we're gonna do today, very important, okay? Look, we're going to go on YouTube, we're gonna look up some videos, so that next time there's a cinematic, or there's something going on, I'm a little bit more educated on the subject matter, and I won't mistake a character for another, and call them the wrong name. So, we're gonna get right into it, okay? And we're gonna start with the story of League of Legends explained. This is where we become knowledge. Are you ready? I'm not. Let's get into it. This guy, Necrit, is insane.
Questions I get asked are, is the lore of League of Legends good? To which I say that we have a lore channel with over 500 videos now. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like the story. And I want to read the story, but I don't know where to start. And that is a very hard question to answer. Because quite frankly, you can start anywhere you want. All of Riot's stories are written in a way where
it's a lot.
You read, all of the information you need to understand it is somehow put in there. For example, if you are interested in Ionia, you can read about any champion in any order you want. But some characters talk about certain events more than others. Some champions like Riven or Master Yi explain the Noxian chemical warfare, but they still at least mention...
Like, guys, there's whole ass manga, like, there's whole ass stories and, like, books and about League of Legends. And y'all got mad at me when I said 2 Kales?
Battle at the Placidium. Other champions like Irelia or Karma explain the main battle at the Placidium, but they only hint at the chemical warfare. So basically, all the stories contain all the information you need, so you are never left confused. But I understand that simply telling you that you can read whatever you want is not a good answer. After all, League of Legends does have its main storyline. Despite there being more than 145 champions, all with their own unique stories, there is an overarching plotline that serves as the real story above all the others. And today, we will talk about exactly that. It wasn't an easy task, but I managed to put together the complete story of the main events that affected the universe of League of Legends.
Let me know.
The way I did it was simple. I read
this is better.
All the information you're about to hear can be found in various stories and champion bios. But just like you have item descriptions or journal logs in other games, League is also hiding tiny pieces of information in places you wouldn't expect. You can actually get a lot of new hidden information by cross-referencing different champion stories.
That's so pretty.
The way it works is that you usually have 2 champions from the other side of the world pointing at different mysteries.
But
when you realize that they are actually pointing at the same thing, you discover something massive. So with all of that said, keep in mind that the story of Runeterra can still get expanded upon. So in the future, some of the things we mentioned here may be already explained and things might be slightly different. In fact, I would say that about 15% of this video is sourced from those tiny pieces of information. However, what I'm about to show you right now is still the closest thing we can get to covering the entire storyline of League of Legends. But enough about unnecessary explanations. Finally, without further ado, let's get into the main storyline of League of Legends.
Let's go!
Let's
I'm really
start at the
excited
very,
to
very
learn,
beginning.
actually.
In the ages before time was even a concept, there was nothing.
Okay.
Or at least that's what the things inside the nothing thought. You see, since the beginning of time, there were always the Watchers. They are these nightmarish shapeless creatures that drifted in the absolute darkness of the universe. The thing is that the universe was so dark and empty, the Watchers themselves didn't even know they existed. There was nothing to see and nothing to feel. There was nothing to show them that they actually lived. But that all changed when a tiny spark of light appeared in the empty cosmos.
It's the Big Bang?
Suddenly, the Watchers realized they could see. Not only that, they realized that they are conscious beings with senses. Just like that, the spark of light woke up the Watchers from their eternal sleep. Naturally, the Watchers were quite annoyed at the tiny spark. Up until now, everything was peaceful and quiet. But this spark was blinding them, and it was ruining their...
This video is sponsored by Poro Fest.
When they drifted closer to inspect the light, the Watchers found out that the tiny spark was in fact a window into reality. Inside the reality, dragons of twilight, cosmic beings, and even death itself came to be, and they roamed around the empty space. Some, like Aurelian souls, spread light around. They left little pieces of themselves behind.
Oh no, I didn't say. Hold on, wait. I'm not saying I hate Poro. I was saying I hate ads, and I got annoyed that I got added. I don't know what Poro is. To elaborate and to make things clear. That's not what I was getting at. Please. That's not what I was getting at.
And with a little help from cosmic dust, planets formed around these stars. The absolute majority of these newborn worlds...
I love Poro. I have one. I have a Poro. It's so cute. I like Poros.
Were empty, but sometimes there was life. The one planet that we know about is Runeterra. Now, Runeterra wasn't shaped by accident. The Celestials created this world with the use
back to the lore. Hold on.
The name Runeterra. But while that was happening, the Watchers observed it all from afar. It didn't take long before the celestial beings became aware of them. They knew that something was overlooking their realm, and they knew it was more powerful than anything in their reality. Now, don't take this information for granted. Technically, it should be considered a theory, but it is believed that the Celestials created Runeterra to host an army of powerful beings that would defend reality against the Watchers. This was never directly confirmed, but as you'll see from the rest of the story, that is highly likely what happened here. Anyway, the planet was created and the Celestials were paying close attention to its development. This is likely the time...
The Celestials are like, they literally create... So they're... It's like a metaverse? A VR chat?
And when Ornn, Anivia, Volibear, and the Seal Sister appeared on Runeterra. It is theorized that the Celestials put them there to terraform the planet. The only thing that we get confirmed is that according to his legend, Ornn did actually shape the mountains of Freljord. However, after a mysterious disaster, the world runes that created this world were lost and scattered across the same planet. This is likely the reason why Runeterra...
So, Volibear and Ornn are actually... Okay. Holy fuck, this is gonna be a lot. I'm just starting to realize, like, this is gonna be... Yeah, you better strap in. This is gonna be a lot. Holy fuck, like Marvel... Yeah, they're kind of like Thor, right? They're like, kind of like the gods of the earth. What are those, like... I just learned this today. Yeah, I don't know where they took the lore. Shit's going wild. Dude, it is actually insane.
Millennia passed and life started blooming on Runeterra. First, it was Yordles, Animals, and who started appearing on the ocean floor. But humans later joined them when they started covering the surface.
I'm not gonna lie, I love Fizz, but when we get to his lore, I'm gonna hate on him so hard. I fucking hate Fizz. As an Ahri main, fuck that guy.
It was very important to the Celestials. As mortals began emerging, the Celestials started fiddling with their lives. In fact,
Bard is God.
To the Celestials, they had...
Wait, so like Bard is God? Wait, Bard is a god. No way. Like, Bard is God? This entire time? Makes a lot of sense.
Some kind of grand design for the mortals. The story specifically avoids
he's like a god.
What the design was. But at least we know that...
Or like an architect, creator.
The evolution of life wasn't an accident. To strengthen the relationship between the Celestials and the mortals of Runeterra, the Celestials did two things. First, they created star constellations. These were images that served as messages to guide mortals to their intended purpose. It was an easy way to communicate with them. And second, the Celestials created Mount Targon. An interesting fact is that the
Yes.
mountain was literally...
So I know, at least from this, Mount Targon is like, I think Diana, Pantheon, Leona. I know those 3 champions for sure. I might be wrong. That they have a lot to do with Mount Targon. That's like really the only thing about Mount Targon that I know. But I'm really excited to learn about Leona, Pantheon, and Diana because I heard that lore from those champions specifically are really cool. Basically, Olympus, yeah.
ripped from the ground. It is as if someone pinched the earth and pulled it up. That's why it is much steeper than any other mountain. Also, you may notice that a lot of the mountain surface is covered in ice. Partially, it is because it is really cold up there. But it's also because as the mountain was being pulled up, it was also dragging lakes and rivers with it. So a lot of the ice is vertically frozen lakes stuck to...
Yo, that is really cool. I like how they dude, that's so detailed and actually like the way that they created a world build and used little details and essences of the world in these things, like in this, like that little detail of pulling lakes into Mount Targon because it pulls up so everything else comes up with it is so cool.
To the mountain.
Like what?
In the end, Mount Targon was a pretty successful invention. It served as a beacon of godly light and magic that attracted beings from all over the world. The more advanced mortals even formed their own civilization around its peak, which gave them a deeper connection with the celestial realm. And after some time, few of the most trusted individuals were elevated by the Celestials, specifically by the Celestial aspects, creating the very first ascended beings. But the Celestials weren't the only ones who were strengthening their control over the life on Runeterra. The Watchers were doing the same. They were carefully poking holes into reality, gathering any information about what the reality is.
What are these guys? The Watchers? They're sus. They're ops. They're ops. I don't know who they are. We're gonna get into that, but they're fucking ops.
And more specifically, how can they get rid of it? The Celestials notice these holes in realities that we know as void rifts, and they quickly move to the next stage of controlling Runeterra. Now it was about this time when Aurelian's soul flew by and he noticed how much the life on Runeterra bloomed. And when he got closer, he noticed that all the tiny mortals looked up at him, and they worshipped him. Now this Aurelian didn't mind at all, and he often...
Don't get cocky now. When they announced Aurelian's soul and he was gonna be a new champion, I remember this. I was ecstatic. I was like, a celestial being dragon, like, and then whenever I saw like his gameplay, I was like, I don't know, I just was so disappointed. Was anyone else like disappointed in that? Because I know I was.
Came back to visit Runeterra,
but he's still cool. I love him.
Into the dark. At one point,
the
mortal community up on the mountain, who were now known as the Targonians, offered Aurelian's soul a crown. Aurelian, of course, appreciated the gesture of gratitude, and he happily put it on. But as he did that, he willingly chained himself to the planet, because the crown bound Aurelian to the will of the ascended Targonians. Aurelian's soul was now enslaved. We don't really know if it was just the Targonians who did this on their own, or if it was a plan of the celestial beings to enslave Aurelian's soul. But either way, the reason why Aurelian's soul was enslaved was because he was powerful enough to seal the void rifts. He was an effective weapon against the grand enemy. Aurelian had a massive ego and he couldn't care less about the lives of mortals. So that's why he had to be forced to properly help the reality. At this point, the Watchers were at their limits. They wanted to learn more about Runeterra, but they were massive, and the rifts were tiny. The Watchers simply couldn't fit through. But it didn't take them too long to figure out that all they needed to do was to reach a mortal being and control it. If they could something and send it out, they could use it as a spy. So the way
they're like, we're gonna get there one way or another.
Information more effectively was by sending out horribly morphed beings to devour other beings and gather their information. The reason why information is so important to the Watchers is because they could easily use it as a weapon against Runeterra. The more they learn about how living beings are constructed and what living beings are the strongest, the more powerful voidborn creatures they can create and release through the rifts. But the Watchers realized that deconstructing and recreating beings is not the only way to win this war. Up in Freljord, they were playing a different game. They managed to slowly corrupt the mind of an individual that almost doomed the entire planet. Of course, we're talking about Lissandra. Lissandra was one of the 3 sisters that ruled Freljord, the second most powerful region at that time, right after Targon. The 3 sisters were Lissandra, Cyrilda, and Avarosa, and all of them were drawn to celestial magic. Sorilda
Oh,
wanted
shit.
to command the celestial heavens, but for her arrogance, she lost her voice to the first Twilight. Avarosa witnessed the
Ooh.
twisting dark overlooking the world.
Avarosa. Yeah. I don't know who this character is. Bro. I don't know who Avarosa is. Obviously, when you play Ash, she goes, Avarosa, guide me, or something like that. That's the only time I've ever heard of her.
And she was deafened by its complete emptiness. And
Oh,
Lissandra
shit.
disrespected the wild magic of Runeterra. And as her punishment, she was blinded by Volibear. Together,
Cool.
one blind, one deaf, and one mute, the three sisters ruled Freljord. Since she was blind, Lissandra had to rely on her hearing and delving into dreams.
Okay.
This meant that over time her hearing was so good she could hear what others could not. Voices that echoed through
Whoa.
the fabric of reality. Unfortunately, what she didn't know is that it was the Watchers who slowly corrupted her. Years passed and Lissandra now fully trusted the Watchers. But she didn't dare tell her sisters
Oh,
about them.
shit.
In secret, Lissandra
Be
even
an
struck
op.
a deal with the Watchers. The Watchers would give her people near immortality. This power of immortality is what created the Iceborn, who are basically
There
Freljordians
it
studied by
is.
the power of the Void. And in return, all the Watchers wanted was a safe place to
Just got
rest when they
goosebumps.
visit their world. To Lissandra, this was an offering she couldn't decline, and so she accepted the terms on her sister's behalf. More years later, when the Freljord was ready for the Watchers, without a warning, they started emerging from the abyss, revealing
They were like, "We
Lissandra's
out.
hidden allegiance.
We out."
Unfortunately, their horrible twisted forms were not what Lissandra expected, and she realized the
Shit.
grave mistake she had made. She invited the
She said,
end
"Oh,
itself to their world. At
I
this
fucked
point,
up."
Lissandra had two options. Let the world
Okay.
be consumed, or sacrifice everything she had ever had. And so, using her Iceborn powers, Lissandra managed to freeze everything and everyone who was present, killing Sorilda and
Damn.
Avarosa in the process. This is how a couple of Watchers got frozen in the Howling Abyss, while the rest escaped. After
No.
this defeat, the Watchers retreated, but not without new information. Many decades later, on the other side of the world,
Whoa!
the war against the Void took another turn. Even though Targon had Aurelian's soul under their control, and they dealt with all the easily accessible rifts, sometimes they had to deal with smaller tears in reality that couldn't be accessed by a massive celestial dragon. That's why the Celestials had to nudge mortals to start a new empire. This time, more to the east. Under the
They
guidance
said,
of the Celestials,
"We gotta
the
go."
new Shuriman Empire began constructing a massive disk in Nerimazeth. Using
Okay.
this disk, they attempted to channel celestial powers into their chosen soldiers. But the experiment failed and the disk was destroyed. Later, they made another attempt at this more to the east. This time they constructed a much bigger sun disk that would create super soldiers capable of fighting back the Void. These soldiers
Okay.
would get many different
Shurima,
names. Gold
right?
Warriors, Golden Warriors, Sunborn, but we know them as
Oh
Shurima.
my god, I think this is Shurima. If it's not, whatever. But I love Shurima. I always liked desert-esque environments. My mom has Egyptian paintings in the house. We have a lot of stuff. Like, I've always loved that stuff. So this, I'm super excited to learn about Shurima and about just like this environment in particular is one of the lores that I'm very excited to learn about.
Azir became the greatest leader
Nice.
of the Empire
There
and the
he
grand
is.
leader of the Ascended. He was loved by pretty much
Like, I want to learn how to play Azir so badly, but he just doesn't fit the kind of playstyle that I like in the game. But I love his character design and the way he looks. Like, it looks like Ra, like Egyptian god Ra. He's so cool.
everyone. But
So
keep
hard.
in mind that he was
I
still
love
a
it
human.
so much.
He became Ascended much later.
Shurima
Nasus
Daddy,
became the
you
wisest
got
of
it
the
right.
Ascended. His
And
knowledge
Nasus
of war
too.
tactics would become irreplaceable.
Nice.
And the third important character is Sadaka. She became the war commander of the Ascended host.
Damn, now that I'm gonna learn about League of Legends lore, I'm gonna learn about characters that aren't in the game, and I'm gonna wonder, like, the next champion, if it is gonna be, like, you know, what if it's, like, oh, this character from the lore, whatever. Because they keep introducing, like, new characters that are not part of lore and just adding new things, but I wonder if they'll add a champion that you wouldn't expect that is part of the lore.
And she was the deadliest of all the Ascended. As the
There it
Empire
is.
was growing and the number of their god warriors was expanding, other nations became suppressed, and some even feared the unstoppable army of Shurima. One such nation was the Kingdom of Igathia. Their leader, the infamous Mage King, had enough
One of the arcane characters set to become a champion. Nice. Ooh, it's gonna be exciting to see which one it is.
of cowering before their might, so he went to war against Azir. Now the Mage
Nice.
King knew
Oh,
his
wow.
small kingdom of mages would not stand a chance against the Ascended, so he called upon a power greater than what the Sun Disk could offer. He called upon
Ooh.
the Void. During the
Oh.
battle for Icathia, a massive void
Shit.
rift consumed the kingdom, and after hundreds of years of observing, the Watchers had another chance to silence all reality. Using
Holy
their
crap.
previously gathered knowledge, the Watchers corrupted everything they touched, and they created new voidborn abomination the world had never seen. This
What
was
the
a war on a scale nobody expected. But after many sacrifices, including Setaka, who died while being torn apart by these abominations, the Ascended won, but at a great cost. Not only was the rift in Icathia so big that even today it is still not fully sealed, but most of those who survived were permanently marked by the void. Before this battle,
Fuck.
the Watchers have never even seen a god warrior before, so they weren't able to fully corrupt anyone. But their mark was enough to leave a tiny whispering voice in everyone's mind. Thankfully, even though their
Okay.
war commander Setaka was dead, Azir and Nasus remained untouched by the void, and they kept all the void-touched warriors under control. Of course, it didn't stay that way forever. Zerath, Azir's slave, who was also his best friend and a guide, saw him
Really?
as a naive emperor. Everyone saw Azir as a kind-hearted leader, but there were still countless slaves dying under
Daddy
his rule.
Shurima.
Now, secretly, Azir was planning to free
Yeah, there's
all
always
the
a
slaves
balance,
on the
huh?
day of his ascension. It was meant to
Right.
be a big surprise to everyone, including Zerath. But when the day arrived, Zerath became jealous of the power Azir would get. So Zerath pushed Azir from the Ascension sunlight, and he drained all the power of the Sun Disk himself. This led to Azir's death and the destruction of the capital city. But what's worse, it also left all the void-touched Ascended without a leader to keep them under control. The only one who could do something about this was Nasus. He was wise, but more
Girl.
importantly, he was not touched by the void. However, keeping so many corrupted Ascended in line was an impossible task even for him. And eventually it was so dangerous Nasus had to go into hiding. This meant that the Ascended warriors, now without a leader or purpose, and with tingling void whispers in their minds, went absolutely insane. Instead of being
We have
seen as
Darkin.
godly beings, the Ascended slowly
Bro, Zerath said, you know what? I'm not gonna let you get that. I'm not gonna let you have it too. What the fuck? I didn't know Zerath was such a bitch. What a jealous bastard. What the fuck? I kinda respect it.
turned into brutal warlords. They fought each other, sometimes to gain more power, sometimes to settle their differences. Eventually, they figured out how to control the whispers in their mind, and they created a brand new kind of magic. Blood magic, which they used to reshape and improve their bodies. Soon, the Ascended Warriors were known as the Darkin, and this era would become known as the Great Darkin War. During these times, the entire world was in conflict, as the Darkin conquered as much land for themselves as they could. While all of this was happening, the Celestials watched it all. Their warriors who were supposed to fight back the Void were now fighting each other, and they were more dangerous to the mortals than the Watchers.
Bro, Bard and Sirach are like, damn, what we do? I don't know, but kind of fucked up. And then they're like, I guess we're just gonna have to see what happens.
themselves. So the Celestials had to remove them. The simplest way to do so was to send the aspect of Twilight to Shurima. There she would teach mortals how to seal the Darkin inside their weapons. It took a couple of years, but in the end, the surviving Shurimans together with the Targonian aspect sealed all the remaining Darkin. And finally, the world saw peace again.
Until, oh my god, brother.
If we look back at what just happened, this entire Shuriman experiment was a massive loss for the Celestials. They wanted to have an army to fight the Void, but instead they ended up with the biggest Void Rift they have ever seen. So the Celestials needed an entirely new plan.
No bueno,
But
no
before they
bueno.
could figure something out, mortals took their fate into their own hands. Possibly in the worst way imaginable. You see, now that the Darkin were gone and the world was left in utter ruins, even the simplest man could become a king by simply scavenging whatever he could. And that's exactly what came next. The Age of Men. The first to step up was Mordekaiser. He was a brutal warlord king who easily swept across Valoran and conquered the entire continent. Only when the rest of the world united against him was his dark reign ended. Fast forward a couple of years and the world was simply at war again. But this war was unlike any other. Remember when the Celestials lost the world runes at the beginning of the story? Well, mortals began uncovering them. Random mages around the world held stones with the power to create worlds. It was pretty much the equivalent to holding a nuke. This sounds scary, but everything was fine as long as people were just threatening to fire the nukes. But once the first nuke was fired, the second followed, and then the third, and the fourth. While the Celestials were trying to come up with a new plan, mortals literally set the world on fire. Usually this was done with the help of the Targonian aspects, or with the help of Bard. Bart is a celestial who specifically comes down on Runeterra to take powerful magical items
Bard!
away from mortals, just so they wouldn't
The
use them in
legend,
another
the
war.
myth.
The last time we saw Bart was during the battle for Bart Mountain in Ionia, where he
Ooh.
took away this magical egg. Later Celestials even tried to create more constellations to show people more messages. But at this point, mortal minds were too primitive, and they usually thought it was signs of doom. But sometimes, even mortals helped. On the Blessed Isles, there was a cult of mages dedicated to collecting the world runes. They did it to hide them away from other mortals. But even that didn't help. In the east, only Noxus remained, after they wiped out their neighbors. Yes, this circle you see here is actually a crater. There was supposed to be another nation here. And in the west, Demacia was built as a purely anti-magic nation. We know that there are a couple of nations between them. For example, the Arbormar Kingdom. But we don't know much else. So if we have a look at the world right now, the Watchers are constantly looking for a way to invade Runeterra because they are annoyed by its existence. The north is hiding a massive void rift frozen beneath the holding abyss. The south has a massive void rift still open there, not big enough to fit a Watcher through,
That's
but
a
big
big
enough
problem.
to spawn a void army. The western and eastern Valoran is at war, the entire Shuriman continent is mostly in ruins, and the Blessed Isles blew up. Only Ionia is somewhat decently holding it together, but Noxus had to screw them up too. Remember when I mentioned that the Celestials had mortals as a part of a bigger design? Again, the Celestials likely created mortal beings to use them all as soldiers in this galactic war. Well, whatever purpose mortals were supposed to have, it is far beyond the Celestials' control now. So now, you may be wondering, what happens next? Well, the main story can go a number of ways. We can learn more about the world runes through the vault in Demacia. Or maybe the Watchers will try to get through the rift in the north. Or the Darkin will try to make a comeback and the Celestials will have to deal with them again. Riot created a playground where they can do a lot of different things. Just remember, it really doesn't matter where you begin to read. Every champion and every story makes sense on its own, so you can't get lost. If you ask me, start with the stories found on Sylas's page. He's a great champion for entering the new lore. He will get you right into the newest conflict. And right after that, maybe have a look at Udyr. I think he will surprise you too. But no matter what you decide to do, just have fun and go for whatever you are interested in. The days of bad lore are gone.
Good advice.
And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Aatrox champion teaser? Never seen this. Holy shit! What the hell? Yo! Whoa! Damn! That's kind of sick! Yo, I'm about to become an Aatrox main! Hold on! Look at the comments. But is he still gonna be unstoppable? Yeah, right now he is! R.I.P. Cameraman. Okay, let's learn about Aatrox lore. You have to love that Aatrox is the sword, not the monster. Alright. That's actually, I never knew that. I never knew that Aatrox was a sword. Until literally, until someone said it 5 minutes ago or whatever, when we started the stream. That's really cool. I had no fucking idea. Okay, I'm pretty excited to learn about Daddy Aatrox here.
Whether mistaken for a demon or god, many tales have been told of the Darkened Blade, but few know his real name, or the story of his fall. Hello everyone and welcome to another story you are probably too lazy to read.
The hair flip.
This time we will have a look at Aatrox, the Darkin, and where the Darkin came from.
Okay.
So, because probably at this point you are waiting for far too long, let's go right into it.
Yes, let's do it. I did.
In ancient times, long before desert sands swallowed the empire, a mighty champion of Shurima was brought before the Sun Disk to become the avatar for a now forgotten celestial ideal. Remade as one of the Ascended, his wings were the golden light of dawn, and his armor sparkled like a constellation of hope from beyond the Great Veil. Aatrox was his name. We are only few
Aatrox.
sentences into the story, and it is already important to note that we are indeed talking about the Shuriman Ascended. Notice how their description is very close to that of the Targonians. You have the wings of Aatrox that are sparkling with constellations, and then you have the cloak of Pantheon that is shimmering with stars. As we go forward in these stories, notice how they are very similar indeed.
Yes.
He was at the vanguard of every noble conflict. So true and just was his conduct that other god warriors would always gather at his side, and 10,000 mortals of Shurima marched behind him. When Setaka, the Ascended Warrior Queen, called for his help against the rebellion of Icathia, Aatrox answered without hesitation. But no one predicted the extent of the horrors that the rebels would unleash. The void quickly overwhelmed its Icathian masters, and began the grinding annihilation of all life it encountered. After many years of desperate battle, Aatrox and his brethren finally halted the void's perverse advance, and sealed the largest rifts shut. But the surviving Ascended, the self-described Sunborn, had been forever changed by what they had encountered. Though Shurima had triumphed, they all had lost something in their victory, even noble Aatrox. And in time, Shurima fell.
Bro, they lost Aatrox? How do you lose Aatrox? They forget to cherish him?
As all empires must. So, we have the Shuriman Ascended fighting back the Void, and those who survived call themselves the Sunborn. But even though they had won, they were changed by these horrors. I hope you see where this is going.
I actually...
Without
I don't know where this is going.
any monarch to defend, or the existential threat of the Void to test them, Aatrox and the Sunborn began to clash with one another, and eventually this became a war for the ruins of their world. Mortals fleeing the conflict came to know them instead by a new and scornful name, the Darkin. Fearing that these fallen Ascended were as dangerous to Runeterra's survival as the Void incursions had been, the Targonians intervened. It is said that the aspect of Twilight gave mortals the knowledge to trap the Darkin, and the newly reborn aspect of war united many in fighting back against them. Never fearing any foe, Aatrox and his armies were ready, and he realized only too late that they had been deceived.
Wait, so at this point, bro, I'm sometimes I can't keep up. So Aatrox is part of the Darkin at this point. Yay or nay?
What? Greater than 1,000 dead suns pulled him inside the sword he had carried into battle countless times, and forever bound his immortal essence to it. The weapon was a prison, sealing his consciousness in suffocating eternal darkness, robbing him even of the ability to die. For centuries he strained against this hellish confinement.
So, Frostmourne? This is giving Frostmourne. I know it's not the same thing. Hold on. Don't be like, actually, it's not. Okay. But it's giving Frostmourne.
Till some nameless mortal was foolish enough to try and wield the blade once more. Aatrox seized upon this opportunity, forcing his will and an imitation of his original form onto his bearer. Though the process quickly drained all life from the new body. In the years that followed, Aatrox groomed many more hosts. Men and women of exceptional vitality and fortitude. Though his grasp of such magics had been limited in life, he learned to take control of a mortal in the span of a single breath. And in battle, he discovered he could feast on his victims to build himself even larger and stronger. So, to explain everything that happened, you have the Sunborn without an empire and without void spawns to slay. Being already touched by the abyss, it was easier for them to start a war amongst themselves. It was a war for power and for leadership. But again, notice how Targon played a big role in manipulating the Darkin. Pantheon united all the people to fight them back. The aspect of Twilight gave people the means to seal them. And the Darkin were sealed with the power of 1,000 dead suns. And we all know a dragon whose punishment were dead suns. To me it seems like Targon created the Ascended with the purpose of fighting back the Void. But without the Void, the Ascended have no purpose. But that's just a theory, so let's keep going. Aatrox traveled the land, searching desperately, endlessly, for a way to return to his previous Ascended form. But the riddle of the blade proved unsolvable. And in time, he realized he would never be free of it. The flesh he stole
There it
and
is.
crudely shaved began to feel like a mockery of his former glory. A
There it
cage
is.
only slightly larger than the sword. Despair
The-
and loathing grew in his heart. The heavenly powers that Aatrox had once embodied had been wiped from the world.
Yo, Aatrox, I know a guy who went through this similar situation. I can give you his number, but he lives in Northrend, like a place called Azeroth. Very similar situation. You guys can help each other out. I don't know.
And all memory. Raging against this injustice, he arrived at
Okay.
a solution that could only be born of a prisoner's desperation. If he
Ooh.
could not destroy the blade or free himself, then he would embrace oblivion instead. Now Aatrox
Damn.
marches toward this merciless goal, bringing war and death wherever he goes. He clings to a blind hope. If he can drive all of creation into a final apocalyptic battle, where everything else is destroyed, then maybe he and the blade will also cease to exist.
What? Damn! He said I'ma just kill everybody and then kill myself. Holy actually became like the Mad King.
His bio is followed by a shorter story called Cage, a story from Aatrox's view while sealed inside the blade.
Okay.
Darkness. The breath I cannot take plagues me. It is an emptiness in my lungs and throat, as if I had stopped mid-breath and then held my lungs cruelly waiting. My mouth open, throat hollow, unable to pull in air. My chest, the horrible tension in my throats. My limbs and muscles refuse to move. I cannot breathe. I am choking. The pressure builds. The stillness spreads to my chest and limbs. I want to scream, to tear at my face, to wail, but I am trapped. I cannot move. I cannot move. Darkness.
Fuck.
I must remember. The battle. I lost control. It was foolish. The mortals formed in
Fucked
ranks
up.
against me. I crashed into them, drank from them. The temptation was too great. As I reaped, I reforged their flesh into a better approximation of my true shape. Desperately, I consumed more and more, hoping for the briefest echo of what I once was. Instead, like a fire, I burned too quickly, destroying even my host form. Darkness. It was raining when we fought. What if the mud and filth cover me? What if I'm hidden for thousands of years? Trapped in this prison. The horror of that idea feeds my panic.
Okay, like unrelated, but the design of this sword is so fucking cool. This is like the heart and the flesh, and then, you know, surrounded by a metal steel rib cage. It, like, kind of almost alluding to the entrapment of life in sort of way. Like, the framing of the sword is trapping the pure source inside. It's
The
really
battle
cool. I
is
like that a
ending.
lot.
I can feel it. I must will my form upright. I have no arms or legs. The darkness binds me, like a cocoon. No, I will
he's done.
myself upright. But I can't know if it is working. I cannot know anything but the darkness. Please, let some mortal find me. Please. I beg the darkness endlessly. But the humiliation of my plea is answered only with silence. But then, I feel a mortal nearby. I have no eyes, no ears, but I can feel his approach. He is fleeing from adversaries. He must try to defend himself. He must grasp me. Can he see me? He could run past me. I would be left here. I feel his hand grip this form and his
Dude, this
consciousness
guy's
opens to
yapping.
me. I burrow into him, pulling him down. I am like a drowning man thrown into the sea by a shipwreck, dragging myself to the surface by clawing past my fellows. What's happening? The mortal screams, but he is silenced by the darkness. The endless darkness I have just escaped, and I have eyes. I can see the falling rain, the muck, the blood of this slaughtering field. In front of me stand two weary knights with spears. I cut them apart and drink in their forms, recrafting this body to my needs. They are weak. I must move quickly. I must find a better wielder, a better host. Around me are only the dead and dying. I hear their souls retreating from this world. The fighting has not ended. It's moved inside the city walls. I force my new shape, limping, crawling, toward the sound of battle.
So,
Toward
so
a better host.
this sword is talking? This sword is speaking right now. And he's saying, the sword is depressed? Are you saying that this sword has depression? Is that what's going on right now? This sword is like internal monologuing? Is that what's going on?
I roar, but not in triumph. Never in triumph. I will drink from that city, but I will achieve only a grotesque mockery of my former glory. I was shaped by the stars in the purity of my aspect. I was light and reason given shape. I defended this world in the greatest battle ever known. Now, blood and ichor drips from the stolen flesh as it decays. The muscles and bones struggle, tear and protest the abomination I have become. I take a breath. No, Aatrox, I say, my voice wet and echoing of the dead that surround me. We will go onward.
And
Just in case you didn't believe me, it's right here. I was shaped by stars and the purity of my aspect. It is likely that the Sunborn or the Darkin were created by the Targonians to help them in their conquest against the Void. But before we go into the final piece of the Darkin lore, we should talk about Varus. His lore was also changed, so let's have a look at what happened to him. Regardless of what he would later become, Varus was once a paragon of loyalty and honor, a skilled archer in the ancient Shuriman Empire. He was appointed as a temple warden in the eastern states, and he held his duty sacred above all else. During the earliest stages of the war with Icathia, even though it lay far from that cursed place, Varus's homeland was attacked. While other wardens abandoned their posts to join the defense of the outlying villages, he alone remained, screaming in anguish with every arrow he loosed. For he had chosen to uphold his oaths rather than return home to protect his own family. Emissaries from the ascended host found him kneeling in solemn meditation amid the corpses of his foes. It was said that his cold gaze unsettled even the god warriors themselves. And yet, in recognition of his noble sacrifice, Varus was offered a place in their ranks. As one of the great ascended, he was utterly consumed by his pursuit of vengeance against the Icathians and the voidling horrors they had unleashed. It is likely that Varus did not even fully comprehend Shurima's ultimate victory in that war. So twisted had his mind become, nor the Empire's fall centuries later.
Consider that answer.
Atrocity after atrocity blurred together, leaving
I do not know this flesh. Who am I? Valmar, Kai, mortal names. They mean nothing. I wear newly woven flesh of meat and bone and skin to bear my form. But I am eternal. I am the heart seeker, the swift bolt from the darkness. I am Varus.
Leaving him as a withdrawn colors killer. Reshaped and sent into battle countless times by his degenerate brethren. Their name became feared throughout the known world. The Darkin. Warring among themselves, they destroyed any other who stood against them. With his crystalline bow, Varus assassinated enemy commanders and champions, helping the Darkin defeat entire mortal armies with ever greater ease.
Bro, what you doing, man?
Eventually, Varus was cornered by Vastayan moonstalkers and human mages in service of a golden armored warrior queen of Valoran. They bound him within his bow, leaving him to howl in
Alright, but you know what? Like, they're kind of sexy. Like, look at that jawline. Look at, he's got the glowy eyes. Look at the hair, bruh. Kind of sexy.
Potent rage. By then, the raw, corrupting influence of the Darkin was known. And yet, still the queen chose to wield the deadly weapon in the final days of the war, gladly sacrificing herself for a greater victory. In the months that followed, the queen carried Varus to the First Lands, those that would be later known as Ionia. Now made monstrous by the bow's power, Her last act was to command her fellows to bury her alive in the lightless well, sunk deep
What?
beneath a mountain temple overlooking the village of Pallas. And there,
Okay.
Varus was imprisoned, both by the natural magics of Ionia and the ritual ministrations of the temple guardians. And after that, we all know what happened.
I
So
don't
now
actually
it's
don't
time
know
to
what.
have a look at the legend
I don't
of
know
the
what
Darkin,
happened.
the final piece of the Darkin lore.
Okay.
The Darkin are thrice cursed, once by the ancient enemy they faced, again by
Okay.
the fall of their glorious empire, and
Okay.
finally by the betrayal that had damned them for all eternity. When the
Damn,
rebels of
okay.
Ikathia foolishly unleashed the Void in battle, Shurima's defense was led, as ever, by the legendary Ascended. Imbued with the power of the Sun Disk, these god warriors towered over mortal soldiers, wielding magic and blade with equal ease, and eventually they were victorious. Even
Okay.
so, the horrors of the
Period.
war took a heavy toll, and those who lived to remember it were perhaps never quite as they once were.
Probably
Centuries
not.
later, with the loss of mighty Azir at the very moment of his ascension,
Rest in peace, my boy Azir.
Shurima fell. Although apparently immortal, the god warriors had been born human. Gradually, with no emperor to lead them, many of the surviving Ascended began to falter in purpose as their older petty ambitions resurfaced. They taught themselves forbidden sorceries, and came to view themselves as the rightful inheritors of the world.
Bruh.
Notice that the story mentions the Darkin teaching themselves forbidden sorceries. This is likely blood magic, and it is the reason
Ooh.
why they have all sorts of shapes. There is even a piece of art describing what they did with the magic, crafting their own flesh and armor with equal ease, until
I don't think that's King. It looked like him though. It could be.
they were completely unrecognizable as the noble warriors they had once been. The sacred mortal populace named these tyrants Darkin, a whispered curse translating roughly in the old
Darkin.
tongue as the Fallen. But even the Darkin could not escape the sickness of soul that had come from fighting against the Void for so long. After centuries of uneasy alliance, they inevitably turned against one another, and so began the Great Darkin War. This conflict spread from Shurima to Valoran and beyond. The renegade god warriors and the armies they raised were unstoppable,
There he is!
and entire nations were crushed between them. It seemed as though this would be the end of all things. Until,
so sick.
unexpectedly, the mages of Runeterra learned how to contain the remaining Darkin. Through secrecy and cunning artifice, the physical forms of the Ascended could be merged with the celestial power in their hearts, and all of it bound within the weapons they bore. With their leaders imprisoned forever, the rampaging hordes were broken and
So he has. Wait, so Kane has a Darkin form, and then. Wait, Ross is the Darkin, Kane is the human currently holding him. Okay. So, like, not all Darkins are swords, but most Darkins are swords? Or. I'm kind of so confused about, like, the Darkin race? Or just, like, Darkin in general. My understanding right now is that Aatrox is a Darkin and Aatrox is a sword. Frost is the weapon. Okay, so Blue Cane, Red Cane, is Red Cane Darkin and Blue Cane is something else? Or doesn't matter if it's red or blue. They're both there. It's just everything. Ross is the weapon. All Darkin are bound to a weapon. Okay. Darkins became weapons after they were cursed by former Zoe.
these Darkin weapons were hidden, many of them carefully guarded by the mortal civilizations that grew in the aftermath. For it was clear that such power could be locked away, but never destroyed. And should such power fall into the wrong hands, the Darkin will surely rise once more.
Yeah, I'm actually really enjoying this lore. The whole Aatrox lore, really cool. I had no idea about the whole sword thing. I had no idea Rost also was a Darkin. I had no idea what Darkin even was to begin with. I thought the Darkin were just like red monster beings. Like guys, I really don't know anything about League lore, so we're gonna really dive into this. Alright, let's learn about Ahri. Oh my god. I'm so excited. I really don't know anything about Ahri or anything, so I'm really excited to start like learning League lore. I feel like it's gonna make me like very, very into League of Legends. Like I'm gonna start buying like action figures and shit. Here we go. Let's learn about Ahri.
Hello everyone!
Ah, that looks so cool already. Like, I'm so sad. I'm gonna be so annoying. I'm gonna be so annoying, guys. Oh my god, just this already looks so cool. Dude, that'd be such a cool... Oh, I have to get an Ahri tattoo. Oh my god, that's it. Oh, I'm gonna want to play after. I know. I'm literally taking a picture of that graphic. That looks so cool. What the...
Many years ago, Ahri was abandoned in the snowy woods of northern Ionia. She knew nothing about her original family. All she had to remind her their existence was a pair of matching gemstones. She joined a pack of ice foxes as they stalked prey on their morning hunt, and before long they adopted her as one of their own. With no one to teach her the magic of her kind, Ahri instinctively learned to draw it from the world around her, shaping distractive spheres and quickening her reflexes to take down prey. If she was close enough, she could even soothe a deer into a state of tranquility, so much that it remained calm even as she sank her teeth into its flesh. Ahri first encountered humans when a troop of foreign soldiers camped near her den. Their behaviors were strange to Ahri, and curious to learn more, she watched them from afar. She was especially drawn to a hunter who, unlike his wasteful companions, used every part of the animals he killed, reminding her of her fox family. When the hunter was wounded by an arrow, Ahri felt his life seeping away. She instinctively devoured the essence leaving his body, and gained brief flashes of his memories. The lover he had lost in battle, his children from a strange land of iron and stone. She found she could push his emotions from fear to sorrow to joy, and charmed him with visions of grassy field bathing in the sunlight as he died. Euphoric at the rush of absorbing the hunter's life, Ahri felt more alive than ever, and traveled Ionia in search for more victims. She relished toying with her prey, shifting their emotions before consuming their life essence. She altered between dazzling them with visions of beauty, hallucinations of deep longing, and occasionally dreams colored by raw sorrow.
She a drug for real. She said, take this.
She grew drunk with memories that were not her own, and she felt happy in the lives of others. Through stolen visions, Ahri watched through their eyes as they pledged loyalty to a temple of shadow, sacrificed offerings to a god of the sun incarnate, encountered an avian tribe of Vastaya that spoke only in song, and glimpsed mountainous landscape unlike any she had seen. She experienced the heartbreak and happiness in tantalizing flashes that left her wanting more, and wept at the massacres of Ionian villagers at the hands of Noxian invaders. Ahri was surprised when the memories led her to discover the tale of an unearthly fox demon. As she absorbed more life essence, she grew to identify more and more with her victims, and felt guilty at ending so many lives. She feared that the myths about her were true. She was no more than a cruel monster. But whenever too much time passed between feedings, she sensed her own power fade, and could not help but partake once more. Ahri
she got addicted.
Her self-control by consuming small quantities of life essence, enough to absorb a memory or two, but not enough to kill. She was successful, for a time, but was tortured by her unending hunger and soon couldn't resist the temptation, indulging in the dreams of an entire coastal village. Tormented by her mistake, Ahri could not forgive herself and felt deep sorrow that forced her to question her own existence. She withdrew to the forest caves.
Wait, so she's like a vampire. She's like I mean, not a vampire. She's not like sucking, blood or anything like that. But she's low key like a life essence vampire. And then she was like, she's like a Cullen. She reminds me of like a Twilight Cullen, a succubus, if you will. She became vegan, bro.
Controlling her relentless desire. Years later, she emerged, determined to experience every facet of life through her own eyes. Though she might indulge in occasional essence, she resisted consuming entire lives. With the twin gemstones as the only clue of her origin, Ahri set out in search of others like her. No more would she rely on borrowed memories and unfamiliar dreams.
So she was coping.
Its market smelled of burning incense and rotting cabbage. Ahri wrapped
Oh.
her cloak around her 9 tails and fiddled with the twin sunstone tokens to distract herself from the stench, rolling them between her fingers and snapping them together. Each one had the
Cute.
shape of a blazing flame, but they were carved in such a way that their sharper edges fit together, forming a perfectly smooth orb. She had carried the golden
Cute.
stone since before she could remember, but to this
Okay.
day she had no knowledge of their origin. Though Ahri was in a new environment, she was confronted by the latent magic buzzing all around her. She passed a stand with dozens of woven baskets filled with polished rocks, shells edged with legends from a seafaring tribe, gambling dice carved from bones, and other curious items. Nothing matched the
Ooh.
style of Ahri's tokens. Care for a gem to
Damn.
match the blue of the skies? Asked a grey-bearded merchant. For you, I'll trade a cerulean bubble for the cost of a single cry-raven feather, or perhaps the seed of a jubji tree. I'm flexible. Ahri smiled at him but shook her head and continued through the market, sunstones in hand. She passed a stand covered in spiky orange vegetables, a child selling fruit that shifted color with the weather, and at least 3 peddlers swinging tins of incense, each of whom claimed to have discovered the deepest form of meditation. Fortunes! Come get your fortunes told.
Girl, don't get scammed.
With lavender eyes and soft jawline. Find out who you'll fall in love with, or how to avoid unlucky situations with a pinch of burdock root. Or if you'd prefer your future left to the gods, I'll answer a question about your past. Though I do recommend finding out whether or not you are at risk for death by poisoning. A tall Vastaya with feline ears was about to take a bite from a spiced pastry. He froze and stared at the fortune teller in alarm. The answer is no, by the way. Yours for free, she said, curtsying at him before turning to Ahri. Now you look like you've had a dark and mysterious past, or at least some tales worth sharing. Any burning question for me, lady? Beneath heavy layers of incense, Ahri paused at the scent of wet fur and spiced leather lingering at the woman's neck. Thank you, but no, she replied. I'm still looking around. You won't find any more Ymellow tokens in this market, I'm afraid. The woman said, nodding at Ahri's sunstones. Like the ones you have. The back of Ahri's neck prickled as she drew closer to the woman. She would not let her excitement get the better of her. Do you recognize these? Where do they come from? The woman
that's where you f***ed up.
I think they are Ymellows anyway, she said. Never seen a pair in person. He only carved a small number in his time, and many of the sets were separated in the war. Dead rare, those. Ahri leaned closer with each word. I'm hiring, by the way, the woman said. Do you know where I might find this craftsman? Ahri asked. Hirin laughed. No idea, but if you come I'll tell you what I know. Ahri wrapped her cloak around her shoulders and eagerly followed the fortune teller past her booth and into a caravan decorated wall to wall with animal skins. Tea? Hirin said. I brewed it this morning. She poured 2 cups of liquid the color of plum wine, taking one for herself. The
plum
tea
wine is
tasted
so
of
good.
bitter oak bark, masked by a drop of overly sweet honey. Hirin held out a hand for the stones, but Ahri kept them close. I'm getting the sense that these are special to you, she said with a bright smile. Don't worry, I have no interest in peddling stolen sunstones. Bad for a girl's reputation. Can you tell me where they come from? Asked Ahri, handing them over gingerly. Hirin held them up to the light. These are beautiful, she said. I don't know how they fit together so perfectly. I've not seen the like. Ahri said nothing. She stood frozen with curiosity, and did not take her eyes off the woman. Legend says that the sculptor known as Ymellow collected fossilized lizard eggs from 1,000 years ago that he carved into intricate shapes. These ancient lizards lived long before the Getu Sea dried up to a desert, leaving only petrified bones and dust. Hirin coughed, and Ahri detected a bitter note upon her breath, as if she had been drinking vinegar. Ymellow stones are designed as small pieces that fit into a larger sculpture, she continued. The woman dangled the golden pieces in front of Ahri's face. Just as your past has left you with information to be desired, these stones may have many more pieces that, when combined, create another shape altogether. Who knows what you'll become when you track down your history? With the missing pieces, you may learn more than you'd like. Those are pretty words, Ahri murmured, staring at the woman. After a moment of silence, Hyrin chuckled. Some threads of truth, threads of my own invention. A fortune teller's wavering must be seamless. The woman retrieved a hunter's
Kinda
knife from a
sus.
cabinet. I weave in just enough of what you desire to make you stay, she said. Till the tea slows your muscles, that is. A low growl escaped Ahri's lips. She would tear this woman apart. She tried to pounce, but her limbs did not obey. She was rooted in place. Oh, there's no need for that, lady. I only need a single tail. Useful for a variety of potions, you see, and extremely valuable. Or so I think. Never seen a Vastaya with foxtails before. The tea freezes any pain, along with your mobility. Hyrin wrapped a bandage around one of Ahri's tails. Ahri tried to resist, but she still could not move. You'll wake up tomorrow, good as new, said the woman. Well, with one less tail. Do you really use all 9? Ahri shut her eyes and reached out to the reservoirs of magic around her. The environment had plenty ripe for the taking, but she was too weakened by the tea to draw them to her. Instead, she reached into Hyrin's mind, which was far more malleable, and pushed. Ahri opened her eyes and stared into Hyrin's. They deepened from lavender to violet. Hyrin, she said, come closer. I would look into the face of the one who tricked me. Of course, lady, Hyrin replied, transfixed. The woman's voice sounded hollow, as though it came from the bottom of a well. She leaned in until her face was only inches away. Ahri inhaled, drawing essence of the woman's life from her breath.
Bruh.
Hyrin was a young girl hiding, hungry and afraid, beneath a market stall. 2 men argued above, looking for her. She had nothing but empty coffers to show for her day's work. Ahri continued to drain Hyrin's life, sampling memories of raw emotion. They felt rich in Ahri's mouth, and she relished each unique flavor of emotion.
Damn!
Hyrin told the fortune of a witch doctor shrouded in veils, receiving a copper for her troubles. She used the coin to buy a piece of bread, which she devoured in seconds. In a seedy tavern, a raucous group played cards. A man with eyebrows resembling butterfly wings gambled a golden yellow stone while Hyrin watched from the shadows. Hyrin tracked Ahri as she walked through the market. One of her foxtails peeked beneath her cloak. She drew the Vastaya into her caravan. Enough.
Oh.
Ahri stopped, her head spinning with renewed vigor. With each memory she stole from Hyrin, she felt energy rush back into her weakened muscles, cleansing them of the poison. Strengthened once more, she slowly shook her limbs awake and flexed her tails with a shiver. Hyrin stood wide-eyed and dazed, still very much alive. It was she that would wake tomorrow, good as new, less a few memories that she would not miss. With knowledge of the woman's life, Ahri's rage had faded. She brushed her hand against the fortune-teller's cheek, then wrapped her cloak tightly around her shoulders and stepped out into the sunlit market. Hyrin would not remember her, or their encounter, but Ahri had left the trade with a name to hunt, Yemelo, and the image of the man with soft winged eyebrows was burned into her mind.
Okay.
There is one more story that takes us into one of Ionia's beautiful gardens. A gust of wind blew cold night air from the garden, carrying with it scents of overripe fruits and blooming flowers. Ahri stood before the garden's entrance, where stone transitioned to soil and narrow caves opened to the sky in the deep grove. Thickets of trees and brambles grew wild beneath the moonlight, while
Bro, that was the weakest sneeze I ever had in my life.
flowers bloomed in lush abundance. Ahri hesitated, knowing well the twin nature of danger and beauty. She had heard legends of this sacred grove since childhood, but had never once before traveled to the southern caves to find it. According to the stories, those who stepped over the threshold of the garden began as one person and left as someone else entirely, or did not leave at all. Whatever the truth might be, Ahri had made her mind. As she stepped into the garden, the back of her neck prickled as if someone were watching her. No figure was visible amongst the trees, but the garden was far from still. Everywhere Ahri looked, new flowers bloomed with each passing second. Ahri
Bruh.
walked a winding path through the tangled plants, stepping over roots rumbling beneath the soil. She
Okay.
ducked under hanging vines that reached out to her as if asking for affection. She could have sworn she heard a hush from the soft rustling of leaves. Moonbeams shone through the branches above, revealing trees bearing leaves of silver and gold.
Okay, so
a
this,
snow lily stretched toward Ahri.
like, this video, it's great. I love it so far. I love hearing about it, but it's very storyteller-like. I kind of like it. It's a little different than the Aatrox one.
Ahri's face and caressed her cheek gently. It was too alluring to resist. Ahri
Right.
pressed her face into its petals and inhaled its intoxicating scent. Her
Ooh.
nose chilled as she took in the faint smell of oranges, the summer breeze, and the tang of a fresh
That's
kill.
such a cute
The blossom
illustration.
trembled as it blushed with color, and Ahri's breath caught in her throat. She swayed, dizzy at the flower's perfume. A snip. The snow lily fell to the soil, severed at its stem. A viscous liquid seeped from the cut. Ahri let out a breath, her 9 tails twitching as her head cleared. Ahri
Okay.
startled as a woman with wisps of grey-white hair stood before her, shears in hand. She was wrapped in colorful robes and her eyelashes sprinkled with dew. As the woman turned her sea-green gaze to Ahri, Ahri felt a strange unease, as if the woman could slice through
I would have
air
trust
just
issues
as
too if I was
easily
this
as a
Ahri.
fibrous stalk. The woman's face, wrinkled like tree bark, was impossible
Bruh.
to read. But Ahri was no longer concerned for her own
Hi,
safety.
canines.
You startled me, Igelia, said Ahri. In the
Welcome in.
stories, the old woman was known as the Eater of Secrets, the Forgotten,
Ooh.
or the Witch Gardener.
Eater of secrets.
Wanting to show respect to one with such power, Ahri decided to call her Igelia, great-grandmother.
Igelia.
The flowers want something from us, she
Okay.
said. Just as we seek something from them, it would be wise to keep your nose to yourself. I would know. I have to feed these hungry babies myself.
Oh,
So you are the gardener, said Ahri.
there she
One
is.
of my kinder names, yes. But quite beside the
Oh.
point.
Okay.
I know why you're here, Amina. Little one, Ahri felt
Mhm.
uncomfortable at the word, often used in
Okay.
a familial relationship, though she was
Oh.
not sure why. You seek absolution, freedom from your pain, said the gardener. She stepped over a shrinking fern and beckoned to Ahri. Come. As they
Oh.
walked through the moonlit garden, flowers turned to face the old woman as if she
Shit,
were
yo,
the
what up,
sun
Waco?
itself, warming their leaves and helping them grow. Or perhaps the flowers did not wish to turn their backs to her. The old woman
Shit.
waved Ahri to a bench in front of a gnarled cloudfruit tree and sat opposite of her. Let me guess. You were in love, the gardener said,
Oh.
a smile crinkling the corners of her lips. Ahri's burrow frowned. Don't worry, you're far from the first, said the old woman. So who was he? A soldier? An adventurer? A warrior in exile? An artist?
Bruh. Like, can you imagine what hair looking fire? Thank you. Can you imagine back in the day, like, being, like, nowadays, like, love is so boring. I'm gonna be, I must be so honest, guys. It's like, nowadays, it's like, oh, this guy in my class, or this guy that I bumped into at the coffee shop, or the guy, my coworker, or I met this guy at a bar. Imagine, like, back in the day, you're like a worker, like you're working on your farm, you're tending to your crops, and then like a warrior suddenly stumbles out of nowhere and he's like injured, and like that's so exciting. That is so exciting. But guess what? That literally does not happen anymore, and that's so depressing. I'm not saying that, okay, obviously, like, I'm not saying I want war or I want any of that shit, but, like, literally, like, fairy tales cannot exist anymore. Like, he's so depressed. So depressed because you can't find, like, that, like, oh, yeah, like, the thing that she said, she's like a soldier, adventurer, a warrior in exile. Like, nah, nowadays it's an entrepreneur, a streamer, and what else? Oh yeah, a fucking nobody who does fucking nothing. Like, what?
Soldier, an adventurer, a warrior in exile,
Ah!
an artist, said Ahri. She had not uttered the syllables of his name in over a year. Bring herself to say them now. They were like swallowing broken glass. He painted flowers. Ah, a romantic,
Cute.
the gardener said. I killed him. Ahri's pet. Is that romantic enough to you?
That is
As
pretty
she spoke the
romantic.
truth aloud, Ahri could not disguise the sharp bitterness on her tongue. I sucked the life from his lips as he lay dying in my arms. She said, he was kinder, more selfless than anyone had a right to be. I thought I could suppress my urges, but the taste of his dreams and memories were too enticing. He urged me on. I did not resist.
Not resist.
And now I cannot go on knowing what I did. Please, Agilia, can you give me the gift of oblivion? Can you make me forget?
Make me forget.
The gardener did not answer.
She said, yeah, I love someone. And I killed him.
She stood and picked a ripe cloud fruit from the tree and peeled it slowly, carefully, so the skin remained in one piece. The flesh fell into 6 red segments, which she offered to Ahri. Care for a slice? Ahri stared at her. Don't worry, this one doesn't want anything from you. Not like the flowers. Fruit never does. Fruit is the most generous part of a plant. It strives to be luscious and juicy and tempting. It simply wants to attract.
Oh,
Food
okay.
turns to ash in my mouth, said Ahri. How can I feed myself when I am no more than a monster? Even monsters need to eat, you know, the gardener said, smiling gently.
She's giving me Edward Cullen vibes. If you get it, you get it, but she's actually giving me like, because Edward Cullen in Twilight, he's like, no, in love with the mortal, right? He's in love with Bella, and he's like, how can you love me? I'm a vampire, I'm a monster, I kill people, da-da-da. You know what I mean? It's giving me definitely Edward Cullen vibes. No wonder I like Ahri so much.
She placed one of the cloud fruit segments into her mouth and chewed before making a face.
Oh.
In all my years in the garden, I've never gotten used to the tang. The old woman ate the remaining pieces while Ahri sat in silence. When she was finished, she wiped the juice from her mouth. So you stole a life that was not yours to take, said the gardener. Now you suffer from the consequences. I cannot stand it, Ahri said. To be alive is to be in pain, I'm afraid, the gardener said. A vine dripping with snow lily buds wound its way around the old woman's arm. The woman did not flinch. I can't go on knowing I killed him, Ahri pleaded.
No!
There are greater consequences to losing yourself, Aimina. The gardener reached for Ahri's hand and squeezed it. Her sea-green eyes glinted in the moonlight, and Ahri detected something she had not seen before. Longing, perhaps? You will be broken, said the old woman. You will never again be one. I am always in fragments, Ahri replied.
Always in fragments, just kind of like how the sunstones that she has are also in fragments.
And every second that passes, I split myself anew. Please, Igelia, I must do this. The old woman sighed. This garden will not refuse a gift freely given, for it always hungers. With that, the gardener offered her arm to Ahri, still entwined with the vine of snow lilies, but unfurled like outstretched hands. Give your breath to this flower as you think on the memories you wish to be rid of, the old woman said, gesturing to the bell-shaped lily. The flower will consume them. Do not inhale again until you feel nothing.
There it is.
Ahri held the flower gently between her fingers. The gardener nodded. Ahri took a deep breath and exhaled into the flower. Ahri stood next to a raven-haired man at the edge of a lake. Together they leapt into the water and screamed as they frolicked over endless waves. Ahri's suffering dissolved like a cloud along with the image in her mind.
Aww.
In a forest silenced by winter, Ahri watched a raven-haired man painting a single blossom. Am I not your flower? She asked, pulling the strap down from her dress. He lifted his brush and smeared paint over her bare back. The bristles tingled as he recreated the flower atop her spine. You are. He repeated, kissing her shoulder with each word. Ahri knew she should dread what would happen next, but her heart was growing cold and numb.
No!
She stood at the center of a lake, holding the lifeless body of the man she once loved. He dipped beneath the water, becoming contorted through the glassy refraction.
No.
Once this vision would have caused stabbing pain,
Maybe.
but Ahri felt
Maybe.
no more than a dull ache. Ahri leaned over a fallen woodcutter in a stone cavern, consuming his life. At the sound of boots crunching snow, she startled. The raven-haired man stood, watching. Ahri despaired.
There it is.
She had not wanted him to see this. "I can't be good enough for you," Ahri said. "Look at me, greeting for the soul of a dying man. Please, leave me. I am not good. I cannot be good." Her raven-haired laugh responded. "I don't care."
Oh!
This was the first time Ahri
Giving Edward Cullen and Bella Swan, I swear to
remembered
God.
someone loving her wholly, in spite of her nature. His voice was warm and deep with emotion.
No way, you just threw
I
tomatoes
know.
at me.
The memory
Bro,
caught
take
in
that
Ahri's
back.
throat as she stopped breathing, breaking the flower's spell. No, she thought. I can't lose this. Ahri tried to inhale, but the air felt like a noose around her neck. It choked her and stifled her throat, as if she were breathing poison. Her vision blackened, but she gasped until her lungs were almost bursting. Losing this would kill him all over again. Ahri's knees gave out as she collapsed on the ground, still gripping the snow lily. In a snow-silenced forest, she envisioned each of her 9 tails ripped from her spine, only to grow back so it could be torn off again. In a stone cavern, she saw dozens of portraits of herself painted in inky black brushstrokes. In each of these images, her face was blank and cold. She floated weightless at the center of a lake and looked down to see that the lake was not filled with water, but with blood. Where are you? In her mind's eyes, she saw a face wrapped by the endless folds of her memory, which she was already forgetting. The face was blurred, like a painting of a man rather than the man himself. He looked at her, stared into her, but she could not meet his gaze. Ahri opened her eyes. The gardener was standing above her, holding the vine of snow lilies, which had turned raven black. "Can you still see him?" asked the old woman. Ahri focused on the hazy shapes in her mind and focused until they materialized into a face. His face. "Yes, it's cloudy, but I remember," said Ahri. She fixed the image of his face in her mind, memorizing every detail. She would not let it dissolve. The old woman's eyes flashed, not with longing, but regret. "Then you did what many had not the strength to do. You did not succumb to peace."
Oh, fuck.
"I couldn't," said Ahri, choking over her words. "I couldn't give him up, even if I am a monster. Even if each day I fall apart and each day I must bear the pain 100 times over. Oblivion is worse. Much worse. Because oblivion was 1,000 blurry faces staring at her with empty eyes. You cannot take back what you gave, Aymina, the gardener said. The flowers do not relinquish what was freely given, but you may keep what remains. Go, go, leave this place before it takes hold.
Holy
whispered.
shit.
Vines coiled around the gardener's shoulders, revealing lilies of deep sea green,
It's happening.
as it's done to so many others. Ahri
What's going
tried
on?
to stand, but vines of snow lilies had wound its way around her tails.
Got caught.
She struggled against their tightening clutches, prying barbs from her fur.
Yo,
then
chill.
scrambled to her feet
Chill,
and
chat.
ran. Knotted roots broke loose from the soil, trying to ensnare her as she leapt over them. A
Oh my
tangled
God.
curtain of thorned moon roses formed to block Ahri's path, but she held her breath and dove beneath the flowers, which caught wisps of her hair as she tumbled. The path from the garden was overgrown with snow lilies of all colors. Their leaves,
Here we go.
sharp as blades, slashed at Ahri's skin, while thick stalks coiled around her face and neck, binding her mouth. Ahri bit down and ripped through the fibers with her teeth, tasting sour blood. She tore through the archway to the stone caverns beyond. She could just make out the gardener's voice. "A piece of you lingers here, always." The old woman. Unlike us, the garden does not forget.
Don't we all,
Ahri
Jay?
did not turn back.
Well, there it is. Ahri lore. It's alright. I mean, it's not exactly what I imagined, but it was still pretty good. Nothing that I didn't really know already. I think Ahri's lore is very simple, but it was cute. I liked the story. It was very storyteller-like. Let's watch Akali lore. Very excited. So, I never played Akali. I've always wanted to learn how to play Akali. I think Akali's character design is really cool. I always enjoyed every time Akali gets a new skin or any art that I see of Akali. She pretty dope. So, alright, let's do Akali.
Hello everyone and welcome.
There it is.
If there was
How
something
old
that
is this
people
video?
didn't expect, it was learning about Akali
5
for
years.
the first time from a content creator rather than Riot themselves. You would have
Right.
more luck for seeing this with the Pink Ward. And we know that thing is as meaningful
There it
as
is.
looking for family bonds in the Dukuto family.
Clever.
Akali revealed something new about Ionia and, well, being the god of Ionia, as proven by this piece, which was actually sent to me by Riot Games. Yes, this
Cute.
is Ionia, and yes, I'm the Lord now. And being the Lord is my duty to serve my land well. So, without further ado, let's have a look at Akali.
Yes. Damn, that's so cool they sent him that. That's actually a really cool piece.
The story of Akali begins right in the middle of the story of Zed and Shen. And Akali's story
Nice.
sheds some light on what happened after Zed turned to the dark side. It's not
Yes.
a lot of new information, but some retconning has happened indeed. So it is important to mention it before we start with Akali. Zed and Shen were two ninjas trained in the Kinko monastery. While Zed is an orphan, Shen is the son of their master, Kusho, the Eye of Twilight. Kusho
Okay.
was an elite warrior capable of
Kusho.
restoring balance against the greatest of odds. Such legendary was his reputation that when the criminal known as the Golden Demon appeared in the southern Ionian mountains, and all other demon hunters and voodoo masters failed, the government was forced to ask Kusho for help. The Golden Demon was known for leaving behind horribly mutilated and twisted bodies for display, seemingly without
Damn.
motives. Throughout the
Okay.
province of Zayun, he slaughtered scores of travelers and sometimes entire farmsteads. No matter how fearless one was, his victims' corpses spread terror for miles around. So when
Fuck.
Kusho stood up to the task, he had to take his best students with him. So
Yup.
it fell upon Shen and Zed to be his guided hands of will. At this
Damn.
time, the two young warriors felt no real hatred towards each other. Zed was a bright student following his studies, and Shen was known for his wit and humor. But
There
that
it
all
is.
changed when the three of them disguised themselves as merchants and moved into the province.
There
In
it is.
secret, they visited the countless families emotionally shattered by the killings, dissecting the horrific crime scenes, and looking for possible connections or patterns to the murders. Their investigation took 4 long years, and left the three men changed.
Damn.
The famous red mane of Kusho turned white. Shen, still known for his wit and humor, became somber. And Zed, the brightest star of Kusho's temple, began to struggle with his studies. Upon finding a pattern to the killings, the Great Master is quoted as saying, "Good and evil are not truths. They are born from man, and each sees the shades differently." Depicted in a variety of plays and epic poems, the capture of the Golden Demon would be the 7th and the final great feast of the illustrious career of Lord Kusho. On the eve of the Blossom Festival in Gion Pass, Kusho disguised himself as a renowned calligrapher to blend in with the other guest artists. Then,
Alright.
he
I'm gonna put on
waited.
captions.
Everyone had assumed that only an evil spirit could commit these horrific crimes, but Kusho had realized the killer was an ordinary man. The famed Golden Demon was actually a mere stagehand in Zion's traveling theaters and opera houses, working
Nice.
under the name Kada Jin. When they caught
Oh.
Jin, young Zed marched forward to kill the cowering man, but Kusho held him back. Despite
Then?
the horrors of Jin's actions, the legendary master decided the killer should be taken alive and left at Tula prison. Shen disagreed, but accepted the emotionless logic of his father's judgment.
Okay.
Zed, disturbed and haunted by the murder scenes he had witnessed, was unable to understand or accept this mercy. And it is said a resentment began to bloom in his heart. Zed continued to
Damn.
struggle with his studies, his frustration ultimately forcing him to go
Bloom.
into the sealed part of their clan's temple and find a source of
Oh,
power
my
that
bad.
would make him more powerful than any of his fellow students. That's when Master Kusho found out Zed had uncovered the secret shadow techniques hidden inside the temple. And that's when Zed was banished from the Kinko order. Of course, years passed and Zed eventually created his own circle of
Zed
followers,
did meth.
the Order of the Shadows. In the old story, Master Kusho waited for Zed's return, and he peacefully invited him into their temple. But the new story that
Shit.
came with Akali states something else. So let's have a look at the
Ooh.
story of Akali now. Ionia
Okay.
has always been a land of wild magic. It's vibrant people and powerful spirits seeking to live in harmony. But sometimes this peaceful equilibrium does not come easily. Sometimes it needs to be kept in check. The Kinko are self-appointed keepers of Ionia's sacred balance. The Order's loyal acolytes walk in the spirit and material realms, meditating conflicts between them and, when necessary, intervening by force. Born among their ranks was Akali, daughter of Mayhem Jomen the Thigh, the renowned Fist of Shadow. Mayhem and her partner Tano raised their daughter within the Kinko Order, under the watchful leadership of Great Master Kusho, the Eye of Twilight. Whenever her parents were called away, other members of the Order stepped in as Akali's surrogate family. Kennen, the Heart of the Tempest, spent many hours with the young girl, teaching her shuriken techniques and emphasizing speed and agility over strength. Akali was a precocious child and soaked up the knowledge like a sponge. It became clear to all that she would follow her parents' path. Along with the Great Master's son and appointed successor, Shen, she would lead a new generation dedicated to preserving Ionia's balance.
There it
But balance
is.
can be fleeting. The Order found itself divided. A wayward acolyte named Zed returned and clashed violently with Kusho, wresting power in a bloody coup. Akali fled into the eastern mountains along with Mayhem, Shen, Kennen, and a handful of other acolytes. Sadly, Tano was not among them. Zed's transformation of the Kinko into the merciless Order of Shadow was almost complete. But as the new Eye of Twilight,
I really want to learn how to play Akali, but I just don't like melee champions. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it. Like, I'd rather play Kennen.
Shen intended to rebuild what had been lost. They would return
Akali,
to the Kinko's three fundamental philosophies.
These captions.
The pure impartiality of watching the stars, the passage of judgment in coursing the sun, and the elimination of imbalance by pruning the tree.
That's a lot of work.
Even though they were now few, they would train neophytes to restore and grow their numbers once more. When Akali came of age at 14, she formally entered her Kinko training, determined to succeed her mother as the new Fist of Shadow.
Exam?
She was a prodigious fighter, and mastered the Kama and Kunai, a handheld sickle and a throwing dagger. Though she did not possess the magical abilities of many of her fellow acolytes, she proved to all she was worthy of the title, in time allowing her mother to step down and help mentor the younger neophytes. But Akali's soul was restless, and her eyes were open. Though the Kinko and the Order of Shadow came to an uneasy accord in the wake of the Noxian invasion of Ionia, she saw that her homeland continued to suffer. She questioned whether they were truly fulfilling their purpose. Pruning the tree was meant to eliminate those who would threaten the sacred balance. Yet Shen would always urge restraint. He was holding her back. All the mantras and meditations could keep her quiet, but such platitude...
She's so sexy! Oh my god, that tattoo is so fucking fire, dude. I would love... Did you guys see the picture of this guy? Like, someone got the... Hold on, let me show you. You can see here. Someone's, like, actually getting it. Isn't that insane? That's so fire, dude. I love the way, like, the tail goes... Oh my god. The design of this was amazing. Alright, let's keep going.
Would not defeat their adversaries. Her youthful
precautiousness
turned to outright disobedience. She argued with Shen, she defied him, and she took down Ionia's enemies her way. In front of the whole order, she declared the impotence of the Kinko, all its talk of spiritual balance and patience accomplishing little. Ionians were dying in the material realm, and that was the realm Akali would defend. She was trained as an assassin. She was going to be an assassin. She did not need the order anymore. Shen let her go without a fight, knowing this was a path that Akali must walk alone. Perhaps that path would bring her back one day, but that would be for her to decide.
Yeah, period.
So the news story states that when Zed returned, he clashed with Kusho violently. There was no peaceful talk. And maybe Zed didn't necessarily decapitate Kusho in the way he did in the old story, which we didn't really have a lot of information about. So it seems like the ninja orders are getting some proper ironing on their lore right now. Riot also tried to tell people the story of Akali in her new trailer, although that version was oversimplified. But because we need to cover the stories of all sorts, here it is anyway.
There it is. Oh. That's it? Oh, okay. Oh. Nice. Okay. That's so cool. I love how they use like the actual game. Dude, why don't they make that a map? That looks so sick. What the fuck? Is that? There's no way. She out. Yeah, there it is. Okay, there's the map. Yo, I should learn how to play Akali. That'd be so good. Should I learn how to play Akali? I'll play an Akali game. Nice. Are you guys down? What if we do a viewer game and I play Akali? Ooh.
But
That was fun. I like Akali's story. That was interesting. I like Akali in general, but now I want to play Akali. Now I want to play the game. Am I ready for this? To learn about the Freljord right now? Yes. I feel like the Freljord is a very large piece of lore from League, and I'm very excited to learn about it. I don't think it's the most basic one, but it is very challenging because there is a lot of it. But I'm very excited to learn about it. Anyways, let's dive into this.
the
Alright,
League of
let's do
Legends
it.
lore community has three
Oh my
kinds
God.
of people. Those who read all the stories and are surprised how deep it is, those who are too lazy to read the stories and so they come to our channel, and those who are
Me.
too lazy to look at pictures. And that's why
Me.
about 3 months ago, Riot released the first issue of Ash Warmother. It was a small beginning to a form of storytelling that might bring in something big later on. Especially since we know that a comic about Zed is coming, and especially if you know how the Warmother series ends. You know that
Well,
Riot's
it's probably
comics
old.
should not be taken lightly from the view of someone who cares about the lore. But because looking at the issues one by one, as we tried, isn't nearly as effective as summing up the entire story this series is supposed to represent, we will now have a look at all 4 issues in one fell swoop. So, let's get right into it. The very first scene of this comic series reveals that it is a story told by Ash. It is her talking about her
Ash.
past.
Yo, people were so mad in the React video when I called Ash whack. I literally main Ash. Whatever.
She first introduces her mother, Grenna. She also mentions
come on,
that
man.
Grenna was known as the Spear or the Axe. In Freljord, Iceborne warriors were often affiliated with their weapons. Remember this because it will return later. Unfortunately, Grenna
Weapons
was
noted.
hot-headed, which was likely one of the reasons why she was the leader of their tribe. When Ash's own Helner tried to reason with her by telling her that bloodshed isn't the only answer to their survival, farming is also a way to survive winter. Grenna didn't listen,
I'm
and
doing
the
that right
two
now.
Iceborne sisters fought for the leadership of their tribe. In the end, Grenna stood victorious, but Melkrom, the tribal frost priest, confirmed that Helner was just knocked unconscious. She wouldn't die that day. Through fights like these, Grenna formed a circle of followers called Blood.
Okay, but can we appreciate for 1 second just like how artistic and amazing comics are just like it's like so lazily drawn, but it's so well thought out. It's so good. I'm an artist myself. I love comics and I love all this kind of stuff. So the fact that League did it and it's so beautiful and it's like the style is just amazing. I fucking love it.
These warriors were
Kobe. It's so I love that style.
And their next target were
like the sketchy style is so
Even
cool.
though they were weakened and harsh weather was
Ice
coming,
children.
Grenna had the final word, and so they would raid their tribe in the morning and take what they need to survive the winter. Later, Ash went to check on her mother. Here we realize that Grenna has other issues than just hot-headedness. Apparently, she'd been gathering maps of Freljord and maps of stars, because Grenna wanted to find the throne of Avarosa, a place that existed in legends that only the children and the mad believed. After a short conversation between Ashe and her mother, we learned that Grenna wanted to find this legendary place to bring their tribe back to greatness. She also wanted to see if Ashe is ready to become a true Iceborn, because should Grenna fall, Ashe had to be ready to become the next Warmother. In the next scene, we were able to witness the test of the Iceborn. The original Iceborn were Freljordians who lived during the times when Lissandra made a deal with the Watchers. The Freljordian tribes would prepare Runeterra for the arrival of the Watchers, and in return, the Watchers would lend them their power, thus creating the Iceborn. So the current Iceborn warriors are those whose bloodline is connected to the ancient Freljordians. But prior to this scene, we never really knew what it meant to be an Iceborn. Besides their high resilience against cold weather, the Iceborn can also wield true ice, which is a tainted form of ice, likely connected to the Watchers as well. But only true Iceborn can even touch true ice weapons, because the pain of its cold is unbearable. When Grenna asked Ashe to choose a weapon, Ashe chose the axe. But since we all know that
usually like weapons like this or stories in which they tell like weapon stories, it's usually like a blade that is so hot that it's so fire, like it's like so fire consuming that it like burns your hand. And I like how they went the opposite route here and they chose like an ice weapon that's so cold that it hurts to touch. Because it's true. Have you guys ever touched something like so cold that it actually hurts your hand? Like there are times when I go in the morning to go wash my hands, especially right now it's so cold. I go to like wash my face or like wash my hands and it's so cold, like I don't even want to fucking touch it. I really like how they did that. Instead of making like the generic like fire burning weapon, they did like an ice weapon that's really cold to touch and it hurts. Like dry ice, it burns. Yeah, exactly.
Ashe isn't destined to wield an axe. We all know she failed the test. The next morning, the tribe was on the move. They were going to the Ice Children. Here we got another character,
whack Ashe.
Yrel, known as the Ring, one of Ashe's 5 Oath Fathers.
Bro, we just got an ad.
Like her mother, Yrel also pushed Ashe to become a Warmother. But Ashe reminded everyone that her aunt Helner, the one who just lost a duel for leadership, had a daughter and she had as much claim to leadership as Ashe. With that, the tribe departed. As they journeyed southwest, they faced what Freljord truly had to offer. The Bloodsworn were fine in these harsh conditions, but their tribe wasn't just full of Bloodsworn people. They also had the Hearthbound, and they were the ones who usually paid the ultimate price. Malcolm did whatever he could to heal the wounded. Although he was a Frost Priest, most of which act in the service of the
Frost Priest? Okay, why isn't that a champion in League of Legends? A Frost Priest? That sounds so fucking cool. What the fuck? That better be in the right MMO. Bro, I would love to play a Frost Priest in the right MMO. That sounds so fucking cool. What the hell?
Braum was Ashe's friend, and he was the
dude, like this is so cool.
Without him, most of their tribe would never make it to their destination. While their people suffered as they traveled, Grenna was still lost in her maps. After a week of marching, they finally arrived in the Ice Children's territory. Fortunately, the enemy left behind an Elnug herd, enough of them to survive the winter. But Grenna knew the enemy retreated because they had something more important to protect. Something like the throne of Avarosa. So she ordered to keep going. Malcolm advised against it, and when Grenna ignored him, the two started the fight. Malcolm's magic was enough to hold against Grenna, but when Grenna stepped in for the killing blow, Ashe interrupted her and saved him. After this, Grenna let the Hearthbound go home, while the rest continued. The Bloodsworn marched for 6 more days. At this point, most of them were without food, and Grenna herself haven't slept for days. When Ashe went to check up on her again, Grenna had a breakdown. She was chasing a legend she was never able to reach.
Get it.
Unfortunately, after their quiet moment, their people
that looks so cool.
Which leads us to issue number 2.
Damn, I love stuff like that. Oh my god, dude, that looks so cool. This is like the Marauder skins. Like Marauder Ashe. And that's what it looks like. Is that what it's based off of? This is so cool.
A group of fanatic Frost Priests fighting for the cult of the 3 sisters. The first to face them was Yrel with his 2 hammers. He was Ashe's protector, her teacher, but most importantly, Yrel was one of Ashe's fathers, and he was the first one to die protecting their tribe. As more Bloodsworn sacrificed their lives to slow the enemy, the rest of their group retreated over a nearby bridge. Ashe tried to sacrifice herself next, so that her mother could go forth and find the throne. But it was Grenna herself who marched towards the enemy to save Ashe. Grenna died in the following battle, but the rest of the group destroyed the bridge to slow the enemy even further.
Yo, what up?
At this point, only Ashe and her
Darth? Welcome in.
remained, but even they had to eventually give their lives to help Ashe escape. So Ashe
Oh.
continued alone, following her mother's map.
Okay, hold
with
on.
the enemy marching behind her.
Why? He's playing the Lich King music, this Lich King cinematic music in the background. I don't know if y'all could hear it. I don't know. Should I turn it up?
When she finally dragged herself on top of the
Oh, I think
highest
that might
cliff
be
where
too
the
loud.
map ended, Ashe found nothing. That was the hard truth about the legend of the throne of Avarosa. It was a legend to encourage the helpless.
Let me know if this sound is
Desperate
good
to
for
die
you
with
guys.
honor, to die fighting, Ashe surged the frozen waste for a rusty weapon.
Like a
but there
real
was
bad
nothing.
bitch.
When the enemy approached, they didn't attack straight away. Instead, their leader stopped as he took off his helmet, revealing that the
Oh,
enemy was
shit!
Malcolm all along.
What?
Malcolm revealed that he never wanted this bloodshed. Had the Bloodsworn ran, they would have survived. In fact, their tribe was alive only because Malcolm promised his masters he could stop Ashe from following Grenna's insanity. Because
Bruh,
remember,
the way I'd be
Lissandra's
so
ultimate
pissed.
quest is to erase all memories of Avarosa from Freljord. But Ashe didn't care about any of that. She inherited Grenna's hot head, and she
Yo, what
saw
up,
Malcolm
Jason?
as a traitor. Using clever tricks, Ashe was able to kill Malcolm's 2 guards. But in the end, Malcolm caught Ashe by the neck, and he was ready to strangle her, revealing that he was in fact in love with her. But since Ashe was an Iceborn, she
She's a
felt
baddie.
true ice in the rubble around her. And when she reached for it,
Oh.
she found her destined true ice weapon, her bow. Its power surged through her, allowing her to
Oh,
fight Malcolm
damn.
back and ultimately kill him in the end. The second
Oh
issue ends with
shit!
the final
Wait, so she just found a bow random in like the rubble? She found a random ass bow in the rubble and she said, hold on. I can use this. Should you be on just chatting? I don't know because this is League of Legends lore, right? Like the stuff I'm watching is based off of this game. And I feel like people who are scrolling through League of Legends are more likely to click on this rather than random Andes on just chatting page. Right? Right? Because it's like League based. Like, no one's gonna want to watch League lore on just chatting. People would rather watch League lore on like League of Legends. You know what I mean? Like, fucking normie Andes are on just chatting. Sorry, Nikki. But you know, it is what it is.
where the sun illuminated the frozen waste, revealing it to be a must.
Like, no one on just chatting wants to fucking watch League of Legends lore. I'm so sorry, nobody. But people on the League page might want to do that, right?
Massive battle frozen in
Right?
time.
Right? I don't
The next
know.
issue
Maybe,
starts with
perhaps.
Ashe visiting her village, or at least what was
Sorry?
left of her village. It was
Not
nothing
sorry?
but a ruin, and all the Bloodsworn were gone. So Ashe knew she was
Damn.
truly alone now, and being alone in Freljord
Damn.
meant certain death. She marched to the frozen
Who
sea
knows?
on
People
her
watch
own,
all kinds of
which
random
meant
stuff.
that she had to go through
True.
the Ursine territory. And if you know
Oh
anything
my
about
God.
the Ursine, you know that this likely isn't just an animal. Anyway, on her journey, Ashe
Ooh.
faced a massive frostworm. In this region, they call
Ew.
it Grelfine. It was a beast she wasn't likely to slay alone. But thankfully, a member of the Ursine jumped in, and together they slayed
shit.
the beast. However,
Nice.
Ashe was still trespassing the Ursine hunting grounds. So even though they defeated the beast together, neither of them put down their weapons. There was a
Nice.
tense moment, but in the end, the Ursine was revealed to actually not be an Ursine. In reality, it was Sejuani. At this point, there are
Oh,
major tie-ins to the
shit!
story of Sejuani and the Ursine, so I highly recommend watching our video on that topic.
If you sleep on your side,
Bruh.
I bet you hate your pillow.
But anyway, Sejuani told Ashe that the Winter's Claw is now being led
Yeah,
by a
dude.
coward.
These comics look really fucking cool, and I love the art style with them too. Man, like I kind of want to just like read them, but at the same time, like I don't.
And Ashe replied that her own tribe is now gone. After this,
Sorry.
the two cut the beast into chunks of meat, so they could leave the Ursine territory.
Yo, thank you for the sub. 2 months. What do you mean you clicked on the wrong thing? Nah, you ain't getting that back. What the hell? I'm taking that as a dub. Thank you. Ash needs her own show. I think eventually it'll get there. Thank you so much, though. I really appreciate that, Tay.
As fast as possible. But they weren't fast enough, and the Volibear itself noticed them.
This is giving North of the Wall, Game of Thrones, very much so. But obviously it's different, but it's just giving that. It is. How are you? I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well as well. Well as well, I'm doing well. Very well. Swell, yes. The art style has that survival grittiness to it. Hell yeah, it does.
them.
I love it.
Now, if you have no idea what this is, Again,
No, I
the
actually
Earth
don't
Sign
know what
story
that
will
is.
make it clear. It's not so easy
Okay.
to explain it now.
I really want to get into that Ursine story. I hope it's in this playlist.
Thankfully, the horse of the Volibear can't cross flowing water, so Ashe and
Oh,
Sejuani escape
damn.
unharmed. For the following week, they sailed along the edges of the Forbidden Lands, hunting for
Okay.
meat, sharing stories and heartbreaks. They haven't seen
Cute.
each other in 5 years before this encounter, so they had a lot to catch up on. But
Oh,
after
that's
this
so
week
sweet.
of
I didn't know they were like
finally arrived in
besties.
the village of the Winter's Claw. The thing is that the Frost Priests were looking for Ashe, and the Frost Priests were in nearly all tribes, so they had to hide Ashe's identity. When they docked the ship, they were met by Kalkia, the Warmother of the Winter's Claw, who was surrounded by 3 Frost Priests.
Oh, she
Ashe
looks
was
so
an outsider
cool.
to them, and Kalkia would offer shelter only for truth. Now, Ashe knew that the Frost Priests could see through lies, and she also knew that it was the Frost Priests who kept the Ursine at bay, but still, she lied to them. She told them that her ship was attacked by the Frostworm and Sejuani saved her. Of course, the Frost Priest saw through it, and it started a conflict between Kalkia and Sejuani. Kalkia didn't trust Ashe, but Sejuani did, and if it wasn't for Sejuani, the tribe wouldn't have food at all.
Damn,
After this,
Sejuani a
Kalkia
real
backed
one.
away, and Ashe unloaded
She
her food
real.
from the ship, giving it to the villagers and winning their favor.
Hell
This
yeah,
leads
let's
us to
go.
the final issue. It starts with a feast for the entire village. The first scene reveals that Kalkia is in fact Sejuani's mother, and we learn that through a long and very drunk conversation. And as drunk conversations with parents usually go, the child was hit and taunted before the child ran away. Meanwhile, the Frost Priests of Winterclaw plotted how to get rid of Ashe. They had plans to kill Sejuani in an accident, but Avarosans had to be killed in a more direct way. The scene then goes back to Sejuani again, in her hideout. It was her grandmother's grave. And here the story revealed Sejuani's plans. The next day, Sejuani would lead a raid against a nearby village to prove that she can lead the Winter's Claw. She would achieve this with the help of Urkath, a berserk warrior and his brothers. But the
Shout out to
only issue is that
Urkath.
they had to leave someone alive, so that there would be witnesses to her glory. Now back at the feast, the Frost Priest tried to directly assassinate Ashe, but Sejuani was fast and she saved her friend. In fact, Sejuani named Ashe her battle sister, which was a bond that would make an outsider a member of their tribe. But Kalkia wouldn't allow the ceremony to go through. That night was reserved for celebrations, and instead
want a battle
they would
sister.
have to
What
figure
the
out what to do with Ashe in the morning. Of course, these
Bruh.
words didn't stop them, and in secret, Ashe and Sejuani went through the ceremony anyway, and they became battle sisters. After this, Sejuani began the raid. Together with Ashe and the Berserk warriors, they marched on the Ibratal tribe, old allies to the Winter's Claw. As you can imagine, it was a slaughter. The village was on fire and old friendships were broken with blood. The worst thing is that oath breaking is the worst crime a tribe can do. And so there had to be no witnesses. Everything had to be burned to the ground. Ashe couldn't watch Sejuani do this, and she decided to stop her. Sejuani explained that these people were leeching off of the Winter's Claw, and they were responsible for their misfortune. But in reality, these people had to die so Sejuani would win the favor of her people. Then she would take over Winter's Claw and Ashe would survive. These people had to die so Ashe would live. But that didn't matter to Ashe. They were still butchering them. After this, a short battle between Sejuani and Ashe broke out, and Ashe got knocked on the ground. The two argued about their past lives, and about Ashe's mother, Grenna. To Sejuani, she was a hero. To Ashe, she was a failure. In the end, Ashe proposed a different end to their conflict. Since there had to be no witnesses, Ashe offered herself to sail these villagers over the sea, to a place where no one would know about them. Sejuani accepted this proposal and she let Ashe sail away. But should they ever meet again, in Sejuani's eyes, Ashe would be a traitor and an enemy. The story ends with Ashe taking the surviving people
never
to a
mind what
safe
I said
place.
about Sej.
There they would all become Avarosans, and Ashe, who was known as the Bow, would become a Warmother.
Oh.
So that is
Bro,
the complete
what?
story of the Warmother series. Technically, there is more story we can cover, since Ashe also has her base story. And together with that, there is Tryndamere, who is closely bound to her. But it's amazing to see that Wright managed to explain why Sejuani and Ashe hate each other, or at least why Sejuani is hostile towards Ashe. And they also explained why are the Avarosans still alive. It is technically an entirely different tribe now. But hey, Ashe is still there, so they are still Avarosans. But I believe that will be it for the Freljordian stories for a while now. Next, I think we should shift our focus towards the Shadow Isles, because the Lord of Metal is on the horizon.
Dude, I can't wait to see the lore of the Shadow Isles too. That's gonna be so interesting. Let's go ahead and watch the Lissandra video. Oh my god. I can't click. Okay, this is Lissandra.
Beings of old magic freely walked Runeterra. The borders between the mortal realm and what
Yeah,
lay
you should be
beyond
happy
it
for me.
were hotly contested.
Okay.
Into this dangerous and volatile age, Lissandra
Yes.
and her sisters, Serylda and Avarosa, were born.
Yes.
Each
I
sought
remember.
to harness the powers at war, and each paid a horrible price. Attempting to command the heavens above them, Serylda lost her voice to the first twilight.
Right.
Avarosa faced the twisting dark beneath the world, and was defeated by its emptiness, waiting to consume all creation. It was Lissandra who stood against the wild magic of the mortal world itself. For this defiance, the savage claws of a primal god raked across her eyes, blinding her.
Blinding her.
Though each sister had lost a part of themselves,
No way!
it was on the frozen fields of Lissandra's many battles that they were able to unite and prevail.
There
Together
it
they
is.
were unstoppable, but even a bond of blood could only weather so much.
Ooh.
With her sight taken, Lissandra chose instead to walk in dreams. As she navigated the fitful visions of those around her, she realized only she could see the darkness below for what it was. The lingering abyss promised not only an ending.
Bro took the Void Walker model and used it for League of Legends. That is literally a Void Walker. That is the Void Walker model in World of Warcraft. Honestly, good choice.
Infinity.
I expect
Was death,
nothing less.
Both dangerous and full of potential. Unknown to her sisters,
100%, yeah,
Lissandra
100%.
struck a deal on their behalf with the godlike entities she had communed with. The Watchers
Yup.
would grant them near immortality in exchange for preparing Runeterra for the coming of the Void. The three sisters and their most powerful followers were named Iceborn. Those with this ability to
Iceborn.
withstand the worst of the numbing frost would be spared until the very end. However, Lissandra's sisters grew displeased. Avarosa argued that the only thing worse than death was servitude. Even Serylda bristled against
true.
what would become of the world they had fought.
Yeah, I would hate to yeah. I agree. Anything worse than death is serving, forever serving your life to someone. Like, you have no life anymore. You're just someone's bitch. Like, why would you be someone's bitch? Like, I would literally rather die than be someone's bitch. Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Avarosa, you right.
So hard for.
Is
Caught
Bell
in
caused the
middle,
Void Watcher?
Lissandra tried to soothe her sister's
I don't know.
concerns while appealing to the Watchers for more time.
However, we're gonna find that out together when we get to the Void episode. When we watch the lore for the Void. Which, I don't know when it's gonna be, but if you wanna know, stay tuned. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna learn about all of that. Today we're gonna learn about the Freljord. Tomorrow, who knows? Tomorrow might be the Void. Tomorrow might be the Shadow Isles. Tomorrow might be Zon. So, stay tuned. You know what I mean?
But Lissandra soon discovered
Nice.
that even this elemental power was not enough. The monstrous beings she had frozen were merely slumbering, slowly tainting the true ice around them into something darker. Now they wandered through Lissandra's dreams as easily as she had theirs. And always she would wake, terrified, professing her loyalty to the chilling eternity they promised. Ever the survivor, she gathered her remaining followers to venerate her and her departed sisters. If
Okay.
true ice would delay the inevitable end of all things, then they had to gather as much of it as they could find, and scour the
Ooh.
frozen lands for any of Iceborn descent to join their cause. Lissandra and the first among the Frost Guard did everything in their power to
Yo,
rewrite
Verse
history,
Gringo, thanks for the follow.
seizing all
Welcome in,
records
welcome
of
in.
what had truly happened. And
What?
yet rumors and prophecies persisted in myth and song. It was whispered that
Bruh.
Avarosa and Serylda would one day return to unite the disparate tribes. And so Lissandra had any who were hailed as their reincarnations quietly killed. Even she retreated into the shadows, periodically
Damn,
renewing
that
herself
art is
with
sick.
the powers she had been gifted. Like
Okay. Hold on,
the
guys.
thread that lies trapped beneath the ice, Lissandra has never been able to completely control her sister's legends. Whether from
Okay.
guilt or arrogance, her failure to eradicate their legacy has manifested once more in two powerful Iceborn. One an idealist, the other a conqueror. And now between them, they lead many tribes within the Freljord.
There it is.
Lissandra watches them carefully, seeking any opportunity to pit them against one another, all the while
Yes.
redoubling her own efforts
Queen.
to lock away the terrible secrets she had buried deep under the citadel. And she must
Okay.
hurry, for the ice is beginning to melt.
Oh.
And now let's explain what really happened in this story. All of this began in times before any other story we know of. Long before Shurima, Ikathia, Rune Wars, or even any of the Targon stories. These
Okay.
were times when the emptiness of the void first noticed Runeterra and its universe. And one of the
Right.
first places where the void tried to invade Runeterra was in Freljord. Of course, we learned that Lissandra, Serilda, and Avarosa were born into this age. Lissandra
Okay.
is simply Lissandra, Serilda
Right.
has now reincarnated into Sejuani, and Avarosa
Okay.
now has her descendant Ash. When the
Right.
original three sisters were born, however,
Did not
those
know
were
that.
times when mortals first started having an influence on Runeterra. So we can assume
Okay.
that the three sisters were something more than just bare mortals. But we don't
Okay.
know a lot about that part yet.
Oh, okay, they
What
were
we
like
do know is that
influencers.
each
Got
of
it.
the sisters try to harness the
They had, like,
powers that
millions
fought
of followers
against
on
each other.
Instagram?
By this,
Or-
I mean the powers
Okay.
of the void and the magic
Oh.
of Runeterra.
Oh, okay,
Serilda
okay.
tried to
My
command
bad.
the heavens above them. This of course means that she tried to command Targon, a mortal
Yeah, that's way
enemy of
different.
the void. In other
That's way
words,
different.
it seems like Serilda was the first one who wanted to delve into and create aspects of Targon on Runeterra. However,
Damn!
Serilda lost her voice to the first Twilight.
There it
Notice how
is.
the story just calls it Twilight. No aspects or avatars. So it was the real Twilight god itself that punished Serilda. No
Zoe?
aspect like the fan favorite Zoe.
There it
Avarosa
is.
tried to face the
What a
twin dark
bitch!
beneath
She
the
said,
world.
give me that.
In other words, Avarosa tried to command the void, but she failed and lost a piece of her sanity. Lissandra was the one who tried to harness the powers of their own world. That's the reason why she was punished. The story says that she was raked across her eyes by the savage claws of a primal god. A god we know as Volibear.
There he
Being
is!
blind,
That's
she
the
didn't have
boy.
much use in the world around her. So she delved into the dreams
Every time I see Volibear, I think of back in high school when I first started playing League. I would like, I don't know, I was trying to make friends who also played League. I joined like an esports team back in the day. It's just this whole thing. It's not cool. Whatever. I joined like an esports team at my high school for League of Legends. We didn't really make it that far, but you know, no one else played, and I wanted to make friends because I was a fucking gamer loser who just played League of Legends all day. Anyways, so what had happened was that I made a friend, right, and we would play together all the time. All he would play was Volibear support back in like 2017. So every time I see Volibear, I just think of this guy. If you're watching this, hi, I still remember you playing Volibear support, and he would only play the cop skin Volibear support. So it was so funny, and that's all I think about now when I see Volibear. It was such a great time. That was the good old days. It really was. It really was.
visions of those who surrounded her. And through those visions,
Yeah,
she was
yeah,
slowly
Kobe.
corrupted by the masters of the void. They
Void
told
Walker.
her that they could make her people immortal, and all they wanted
Oh.
in exchange was a free pass into Runeterra. To
Free battle
Lissandra,
pass?
this sounded like a better deal rather than just dying. The reason why the Watchers and the Void needed the world to be prepared for their arrival was because the Void spent all of its existence in darkness. Runeterra and the universe is like a blinding light to them, and in the moment of transition into the physical planes, they would surely be disoriented and vulnerable. So
True.
of course, Lissandra
True.
secretly shook her hand with their tentacle, and the
Uh-oh.
Void turned her people
Ew.
into the Iceborne,
Ew.
frost-resistant, nearly immortal people. So when the Void finally erupted on
It is a bit
Runeterra,
sus.
Lissandra's secrets
It is a bit
were
sus.
out. And it was obvious that she was the one who doomed them all. So
Uh-oh.
she sealed the Watchers and everyone who was there at the time in a magical ice barrier. With that, she got rid of all who knew about her betrayal as well. And
There it
ever
is.
since that moment, it was Lissandra's personal goal to make sure nobody would know what truly happened. This includes quietly killing any future reincarnations of Serilda and Avarosa. Her motives are a little bit shady here. We don't really know why it is her goal to let the legend of her sisters die, since her real goal should be to keep the Watchers secret.
Jealous
But
queen.
it's something that might be explained in a future story.
She's
Especially since we will have a
jealous.
look at Vel'Koz next.
Oh, there it is! Vel'Koz! Holy shit! Are we learning about Vel'Koz now?
And finally,
Oh, wait, no.
here I want to drop a short guide that should help you decide what story to read next.
Okay.
One of the reasons why Lissandra was punished
Listen
was
up,
because
guys.
she was likely looking into the powers of the world runes. The world runes are powerful stones that carry the essence of creation.
Infinity
So
stones?
if you are interested in that,
Who has a
and
gauntlet?
if you'd
Who has
like
a
to read
gauntlet?
about what the world runes can really do, it might be a good idea to read about Rise, the safekeeper and overall hero
Okay.
that literally prevents mortals from destroying themselves. If you got interested by Cyrilda being blinded by the first Twilight, I would recommend looking into Zoe first. That should give you
Okay.
an idea of what the Twilight God even is. And if you want, you can also delve into the other Targonian aspects. Pantheon explains how one can even become an aspect, and Leona and Diana
Oh
have
my
a story
God.
about the sun and moon going against each other. Tarik
Okay.
is also part of this, but he is a special one on the side. Even though yes,
Yeah,
he's
he's
also an
special.
aspect of Targon. But after
Just
that,
special
you
boy.
have to have a look
Very,
at
very
Aatrox and the
special,
story
you know,
Twilight of
very
the Gods.
special.
It explains the overall impact
Dude, there's so
Targon has
much.
on
What do we
Runeterra.
pick?
It will explain what happened after
What do we
Shurima blew up
do?
because Zerath betrayed Azir, and how the Shuriman Ascended are connected to Targon.
Oh
of
my
course,
God.
by those I mean Ascended like Nasus and Renekton. All of this is also tied to Icathia. So if you'd like to read about gods fighting the monsters of the void, go and have a look
Oh
at the
my
story
God.
of Icathia. However, if you prefer light-hearted stories and if you're not into the creepy twists, check out the new Nunu and Willump story. Lissandra plays a big role in it, and it gives you a nice feel of what she does now. Lastly,
Okay.
something we will talk about next time, the Void and Vel'Koz. Riot
Nice.
updated the story of Vel'Koz, and with it they explained what the Void is and how it behaves. And I can tell you now,
Alright.
it gives context to everything. I would say that the story of Vel'Koz is a key part of all the lore. And if you haven't read it yet, go and do it now. All the
Okay.
plots in Runeterra will suddenly make so much more sense. Hello everyone and welcome.
Yes, there it
It's
is.
been a while since we had a
Okay.
proper manliness on this channel. So
There
I
it is.
figured, let's finally talk about Braum. There
I love
are
Braum.
many tales about Braum told by
He
the
is like
people from
literally
his
the
home
epitome of
village. There is a
a
story
man.
about Braum defeating a dragon in a face-to-face combat to protect the village.
Yes.
Or a story about him racing down a mountain of lava. But today
He's so
we are
cool.
going to talk about the story of how Braum got his shield.
Okay, let's check that out.
Long time ago, Braum
That's literally
was
World of
a simple
Warcraft.
shepherd living
That's
in the
literally
mountains
Hills, Bradford
above
Hills.
his village.
Or
He
Grizzly
was very
Hills
well
in
known
Northrend.
for being the kindest man anyone had ever met. He always had a smile on his face and laugh on his lips. Tales
Nice.
about him say that he could chop down trees with his bare hands, and
Nice.
such strength was useful while helping others. Every time someone was in trouble, Braum was there to help. He ripped
Yes.
trees from roots to save drowning goats. And
Damn,
he put
he's
out
strong
fire
AF.
burning the village on his own. He was just
Okay.
a man, but
Work.
for the village, he was a hero. One day, as he was tending his goats and sheep, something terrible happened. A young troll boy was climbing above the village, and there he found a secret vault hidden in the side of the mountain.
Oh.
The entrance was guarded by a huge stone door with a shard of true ice in
Howling
its
Fjord.
center.
Yep.
When he opened the door, he couldn't believe his eyes. The vault was filled with gold, jewels, and every kind of treasure imaginable. What he didn't know was that the vault was a trap. It was
Oh.
cursed by Lissandra, and as the boy entered, the magical door shut behind him, locking him
Damn.
inside. He
Rip.
tried to get out, but there was just no way.
Okay,
Luckily,
idiot.
a passing shepherd heard his cries and called for help. Everyone rushed to the accident, but even the strongest warriors couldn't open the door. The boy's parents were hopeless. The mother
Yep.
cried loudly in desperation, as if calling for a miracle. A distant laugh answered. As the hero
There he
everyone
is.
described him to be, Braum ran down the mountain with a laugh on his lips. The villagers told him about the troll boy and the curse that locked him in. To that, Braum
Wait,
smiled.
so like if he's locked in there, how do they know that he's locked in there? Like he just was that loud? Or they just knew where he was going? Like he was like, "Mom, I'm going to the door." Yeah, he's just like, "Haha, you got locked in there, you fucking idiot. Well, now I'm gonna get you out."
Nodded and faced the door.
Yeah, loud
He
motherfucker.
pushed it, pulled it, punched it, kicked it, He even tried to rip it from its hinges,
There
but
it
the
is.
door wouldn't budge. For the first time
Damn,
in a long
ego
time,
hurt.
Braum
Ego
couldn't
hurt.
help. For
Ego
4
hurt.
days and nights, Braum sat on a boulder trying to think of a solution. After all, a child's life was at stake. Then, as the sun rose for the 5th day, his eyes
Fifth.
widened and a broad grin lit up his face. If I can't
Ego
go
hurt.
through the door, he said, then I'll just have to go through. He paused the sentence as he stood up. The mountain.
Yup,
And so
pretty much.
Braum
There it
climbed up
is.
to the peak of the mountain and started punching his way straight down,
Holy
pummeling
shit.
into stone, fist after fist, rocks flying in his wake, until he vanished deep in the mountain. As the villagers outside held
Rek'Sai?
their breath, the rock around the door crumbled, and when the dust cleared, they saw Braum standing in a room full of treasure with a weak but happy troll boy in his arms.
There
But
it is.
before they could celebrate, everything began to rumble and shake. As Braum cut his way through the mountain, he had weakened the structure, and now it was caving in. With
There
no
it is. Yep.
obvious way
Fucked
out,
with the mountain,
Braum
bro.
grabbed the enchanted door and held it above him like a shield,
Oh, like
protecting
Atlas.
them as the mountain top collapsed all around them. When it was
Damn.
over, Braum was amazed that there wasn't a single scratch on the door. He knew it was something special, and from
Yup.
that moment on, the magical shield never left his side. But the world is a big place, and Braum realized that. So he
Okay.
set off into the distance, knowing his tales were not done yet. At the end of his story, he ventures off in the direction of a nearby avalanche. What may be
There
the
it
end
is.
of Braum's story may be the beginning of Udyr's story. Even the building in danger looks like a monastery, but there is no confirmation on that.
There it is.
And that is where Braum's story really ends.
That's
if
cute.
you enjoyed it, you can always subscribe for more.
I really like
YouTube
that
stories
story.
and possibly rate the video to your liking.
I really like this one. That one was cute. I love Braum as a character. I remember when he came out. His cinematic was really cute too. Let me look it up.
In the Freljord, we all come from the
We'll watch
same
this one.
family. And like all families, we fight.
Yeah, it's a different one.
Keep moving! Catch up to the others. We'll hold them off.
I still haven't seen this though. That's not Ash. Wait, how is it? Oh! Not the baby though. Don't drop the baby. Oh! Those are the Frost Priests or whatever the fuck, right? Uh-oh. I think you hit that shit way too hard on the ground. It's just gonna start crumbling. Yep, there it is. It should look like Frostmourne. Has like the numbers on, like the letters on it, like Arthas Blade.
Cousin, we must leave.
Cousin.
Can't move. Stop!
Uh-oh. Oh. Uh-oh. They're fucked. Yo, they look scary. Not gonna lie. Death Knight runes? Exactly.
Raise him well.
Ain't no way, bro. Okay. Where's Sindragosa?
Come, little one.
Actual Lich King move right there. But I don't blame her. It's epic. I love it. Love that. Love to see it. Okay. Period. Oh, wait. Actually saved her?
In the Freljord, they fight.
Common Braum W?
But we only survive together as a family.
Wait, this is so good. How have I never seen this before? Oh, you meant like this? WQ. Okay, bet. Wow, that was really good. I really like that. Okay, well, that's not the one that I was trying to watch. The one that the one that I was talking about was this one, the Trials of the Poro. I love this one too. This one's so cute. Look how cute! I love this so much. Look at it. Uh-oh. Not the biscuits. It's just so cute. He's like, what the hell is that? Oh. No, run. Oh. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Oh my god. No! So cute. The laugh, bro.
You get my back, huh?
Fire! Such a good cinematic, dude. Was this champion teaser, right? Yeah, the champion, dude. I remember this. It was like the first champion teaser I ever watched, ever, and I immediately fell in love with the game after that. Braum is a guy every man wants to be, big, strong, and kind. Oh, his own movie. Braum's is just a nice dude that even the evil characters like him. That's so fun. That's so cool. I love that. Damn, I love this cinematic is epic. I love it.
Yes, today we are talking about Nunu and Willump. These guys didn't get a lot of new story, but their story was definitely made part of the new world. On top of that, they got a massive visual rework. So in this video, because this one
probably is gonna be way better.
The story, we will cover the story and then we will have a look at how they actually fit into the new world. If you are waiting for the brand story, don't worry, I'm still working on it. This one will be a little bit faster, so I just want to get through it first. So
yes, please, thank you. Faster is like way better. Yeah. Cool.
One of the Notai, a nomadic tribe that long traveled the Freljord. Nunu learned from his mother, Laika, that behind everything is a story. Together they gathered tales that Laika turned into songs. For Nunu, nothing was better than journeying from village to village, hearing his mother sing of ancient heroes. With music and dance, the Notai brought one last celebration to everyone they met, as each winter's chill set in. Riding the wave of frost spilling from Anivia's wings, his heart beating the rhythm of a jubilant song, Nunu's world was full of possibility. On his 5th name day, Laika gave Nunu a special gift. A flute, so he could learn to play her melodies himself. In the safety of their cart, the two bundled together and followed the knotted string that served as Laika's heart song, recording everywhere they had been together as the years came and went. When the caravan was attacked by raiders, Nunu was separated from his mother, dragged to safety by a band of Frostguard. The surviving Notai children were taken to a village near the towering citadel. Nunu was left to wonder what happened to Laika, waiting to hear her songs on the wind. Snow fell, weeks passed.
Orphan?
Nunu missed his mother desperately, but the Frostguard assured him no child could safely search for her. They weren't even impressed when he showed them the flute he now calls Wellsonger, the name of a mighty blade existing only in his imagination. Nunu spent more and more time alone, escaping into his mother's songs, the legends and heroes of old. He yearned to be one of these heroes, a warrior like the Frostguard who could have saved his mother. He even met their leader, Lissandra, who asked countless questions about his mother's stories, always seeking information about one particular song. No one believed Nunu could be a hero, not even the other Notai children, who teased him for his flute when they now had daggers.
There it is.
But Nunu knew the songs in his heart, and one night he realized how he could prove himself and earn the Frostguard's help to find his mother. From Lissandra, he had learned of a fierce monster that had killed all who sought its power. thwarting the Frost Guard who were sent each year, never to return. There was a song that Nunu's mother sang. Could
What
it be
song?
the one Lissandra?
Porofessor is in desktop.
Suddenly, Nunu understood. Lissandra wanted to know about the Yeti. Nunu could name the beast. It would answer his challenge and feel the wrath of Swelsongur. Using his flute to tame a herd of Elkir, Nunu snuck into the snow. One lonely child traveled to face a monster, finally living out a legend that not even he could imagine. An ancient and noble race that once ruled over the mountains of Freljord, the Yeti civilization was destroyed in a cataclysm of ice. Forced to watch
That is literally the Yeti model from WoW. Again, he's using a lot of WoW models. Honestly, that's really smart, considering that it's good. That is actually a Yeti model from World of Warcraft.
Savagery after being stripped of their magic. One Yeti swore to protect what remained of their power. A gem that swirled with the frozen dreams of any mortal mind nearby. As the last magical Yeti, the Guardian was also shaped by perception. Though he had been chosen to safeguard the magic until it would be needed again, he could find no worthy vessel. The men who intruded upon his ruined home had only malice in their hearts. And so a monster greeted them with fang and claw. But the Guardian knew...
Okay, so what he should do is just give it to some little kid, right? That's exactly what he should do. Just give it to some fucking idiot child who just, like, hallucinates about songs all day. Yeah, good idea.
He was forgetting something. His name, and the names of those he had loved. Once there had been a song. That all changed when a young boy stumbled into the ruins. After centuries of unbroken vigil, the monster was prepared to end the boy's life, snarling as he sensed the human approach. Unexpectedly, the gem brought forth images of heroes slaying dragons and beheading ancient serpents from the boy's mind. The child roared, drawing his flute like a fearsome sword. But the blow never came, for even as the boy saw visions of heroes swirling around, he realized the deeper truths of the song his mother sang. When he looked at the Guardian, he didn't see a monster. He saw someone who needed a friend. Still enraged, the Yeti did not expect the first snowball to the face, or the second snowball fight. In anger, then shock, then joy, the Guardian joined in, shaped not by fear, but the child's imagination. He was growing furrier and friendlier. His growl was becoming laughter, until the beast accidentally broke the boy's flute. As the child began to cry, the Guardian felt a kindred grief take shape around the gem. For centuries he had looked into it and seen the end of his people. The threat they had buried, betrayal by the Blind One. And now instead he saw a caravan burn. He heard a voice on the wind. He sensed something else within the boy. Something he had never felt from
hallucinations
a human.
left
Not
and
even
right.
the three sisters who had come to him long ago. It was love, fighting back despair. In that moment, the Guardian knew the Freljord's only hope lay in the power already within this child. The magic he had been guarding was a tool. What truly mattered was the heart that would shape it. With a gesture, the magic passed from the gem into the boy, giving him the ability to make his imagination real, to repair his flute, freezing it in dreams that hardened into true ice.
Wait a minute, and a sword too.
Best friend named Willump. Escaping into the Freljordian plains, Nunu's heart and Willump's strength now enabled the pair to do what they never could alone. To have an adventure, following the songs of Nunu's mother. They snowball widely from one place to the next, holding onto the hope that she is still out there somewhere. I really like how this story shows the other parts of Freljord that we don't know about yet. For example, we got some more information on the Watchers and Lissandra. When the Guardian recalls the threats, it reads that they were betrayed by the Blind One. And I can only assume that the Blind One is Lissandra. And it also recalls that they had buried the threat, which obviously would be the sealed Watchers beneath the bridge. It's also interesting to mention that this story should be in the present days, which means that Lissandra and the Frostguard are already trying to bring back the Watchers. Curiously, I didn't think that Lissandra would be interested in the Yeti.
Yeah, ready to learn
it
full
seems
show.
that the gem was one of the world runes which would give her massive powers, but I thought she was interested in the old songs because she didn't want to reveal...
Wait, so is Lissandra, like, she's still alive? Or, I thought she was, like, frozen forever.
So we actually don't know what Lissandra is all about now. Also,
there you go, there it is.
The gem actually fused into Nunu, which means that Nunu is now fused with the power of a world rune, if it is a world rune. Which makes Willump his product of imagination, and that is amazing. It explains why Willump now has 4 arms, why he has massive and, let's be honest, pretty awesome horns, and why he is goofy and fluffy. All of this is shown in his trailer, which I will show you in a second. But all of this explains why Willump just looks so goofy. It's all because he came from the mind of a child. You can also notice how all of the Freljordian stories kinda mention Anivia there. Brand mentioned that Anivia is the one spreading ice around Freljord. And here Nunu mentions that they rode the waves of frost spilling from Anivia's wings. So it seems like Anivia really is the protector of the Freljord. Maybe casting it in ice has a purpose. Maybe the ice is protecting something. But that is for another theory. And now, let's play
cute.
the
I like
trailer.
that theory.
Look at the stars and look for the barred constellations. I wasn't able to find them. Maybe I wasn't looking hard enough.
Yes, we are learning. Watch this.
No way! That's the best story I've ever heard. Whoa! Did you see that one? Really? We can wish for anything we want? Ooh!
Give me, I just got goosebumps.
Yeah! We can eat all your favorites, Willump. Roasted brachiosaurus, pollywog pudding, egg popsicles, rocks, rocks, whatever that is, and maybe not that. Oh, what if we made a snowman? Ah! Woo, you're right.
That's
that was
so
close.
cute.
I know.
For real, he's literally Chewbacca. But that's Nunu.
Bigger?
I don't really want to watch this whole thing. Just because, like, I don't really care for this. I just want to learn the lore and not, like, his abilities.
What are we waiting for? Go, Willump, go!
That's pretty cute, though, you have to admit.
Or we were elves. Or zombies. No, wait. Robots.
Roblox?
What?
When they released Aurelian Soul back in 2016, no one believed that he would be the herald of a new fleshed out universe. But here we are 3 years later with a universe that has its own massive mythos. Not only do we now know about the main plot point of League of Legends, but we also know that the different regions of Runeterra have their own smaller subplots. But what you may not realize is that all of them actually play a role in the main story. The Dark in War, LeBlanc in Noxus, Orlon founding Demacia. All of those storylines link to the Watchers.
God, we have so much more
We'll make a video
to
on
get
it
to,
later,
man.
because the story of League of Legends is already more complex than you probably imagine. Of course, Freljord always served as the main
Mizkif is wearing a crop
Watchers.
top at the
In video
gym?
where we talked
Fucking
about
yikes.
Lissandra, we learned that she almost let the Watchers
I was watching that
control
stream
her
earlier.
reality. But that's not the only storyline Freljord holds.
It's kinda hot.
Freljord is also home to the demigods, who can be seen as the shapers of the environment. They
I'd
are
rather
also
see
known
Wake
as
in a
the
crop
old
top,
gods
though.
of the
I don't
North.
really care for
It is
Miz.
believed that Anivia carries ice and snow on her wings.
Hell yeah,
but she
Nikki
can
Raid,
also
you already
soothe
know.
blizzards.
What up, Kip?
So many tribes, such as the one in Nunu's story, follow her wake. Ornn is a demigod that built the bridge that would help seal the Watchers. But Volibear is the one we didn't know much about. We knew that he had a cult of followers, the Ursine shapeshifters. He also fought Ornn in the past, resulting in rivers of blood covering the fresh lands of Freljord. But besides this, Volibear was always kept shrouded in mystery. Thankfully, that changed a couple of weeks ago, when Riot decided to polish the stories of Udyr and Sejuani. Because of these two champions, the story of Freljord takes another turn. And that's what we'll have a look at right now. Just a warning for those of you who would like to read it yourselves. In this video, we will sum up the bios of Sejuani and Udyr.
You know, Nikki says a lot of things.
Our version of the story, Silence for the Damned.
Nikki says a lot of things.
Sejuani was the child of a Freljordian political marriage. In Freljord, leaders of tribes usually bonded with other tribes to make their people stronger. And that's exactly what happened to Sejuani. Her mother, Kalkia, was the Warmother of the Wintersclaw tribe. She wanted to gain new allies for her tribe. So
Thank you. Wait, can I have that? God, thank you. Got food. Oh, yeah. Look at that. W mom. You see what I mean? So good. God, I'm so excited. Now I can eat and watch this.
So she got married to a man.
Prepare for
she didn't
absolutely
necessarily
zero
love,
commentary
but she
and
knew these men were
100%
powerful.
munching.
Sejuani is the child of that specific marriage. However, when Sejuani was still a child, Kalkia abandoned her tribe and her new family to find the man she fell in love with years ago. This meant that Sejuani's grandmother, Hejien, had to lead their people instead. Though Sejuani tried her best to be a good granddaughter, she never met Hejien's expectations. And as the tribe fell into chaos without a young leader, Hejien had even less time to take care of Sejuani.
Damn,
Because
she was
Sejuani
like,
now
move, bitch.
left without a feeling of wealth, love, or safety, she naturally looked for it elsewhere. Thankfully, Winter's Claw's sister tribe, the Avarosans, were like her second family. The Avarosan Warmother, Grenna, who was also Ash's mother, took Sejuani into her household. After Sejuani discovered that Grenna once beat Kalkia in a duel, Sejuani instantly saw Grenna as her new idol. Because of this new bond with the Avarosans, Sejuani and Ash became good friends. Time passed and Grenna began to question how the Winter's Claw treated young Sejuani. This angered Hejien, who was still leading the Winter's Claw, and she cut all ties with the Avarosans. Over time, Winter's Claw became hostile towards the surrounding tribes. They were trying to reclaim some of their lost lands. But
yeah, Sejuani ended up hating Ash in the end.
Somehow, the news about this spread so far, Kalkia learned about it too. And after Kalkia learned that her former tribe was slowly dying, she returned
I've been to Straight Bone.
Winter's Claw again. She even successfully calmed down the surrounding tribes. But the damage was already done and the Winter's Claw was weakened. Because of this, they had to rely on the Frost Guard and their Frost Priest to protect them. Sejuani couldn't believe her family would side with the cruel Frost Guard, and she was resolved to take over the leadership for herself. But it wasn't all so simple. First, she had to gain the support of their people. She achieved this by raiding a Noxian warship that was occupying the northern coast. During this assault, Sejuani freed a Druvask boar from the Noxian butchery. This boar would later become the biggest Druvask she had ever seen, and she would name it Bristle. After this successful mission, Sejuani was ready to return home and challenge her mother directly. In Freljord, a duel between a mother and her daughter was unthinkable, but Sejuani wouldn't look away. This outraged the Frost Priest, who had to step in, and in the end, Kalkia died before Sejuani could even reach her. As the new Warmother of the Winter's Claw, Sejuani began absorbing nearby tribes, gaining more power and a horde of followers in the process.
I'd be like, I wanted to do
She was
that.
heavily against the Frost Guard, and the Frost Guard were known for slaying wielders of foul magic. She also attracted outcast shamans, spirit walkers, iceborn, stormborn, and worshippers of the old gods from all across Freljord. A couple of years later, Sejuani turned the Winter's Claw into one of the strongest tribes in Freljord. And now that she has everything under control, she is marching south, devouring the southern tribes, Noxian invaders, and even villages across the Demacian borders. Unfortunately, Ash had a similar idea, and she also united people in a massive tribe, but with a different ideology. Because of their differences and because Sejuani sees Ash as Grenna's betrayer, to the Winter's Claw, the Avarosans are also seen as enemies. This was Sejuani's story somewhat
some major beef, some major drama going on here. Can they just like make up like I don't know, just talk about it? You know what I mean?
So
like,
far, there wasn't much on the
it's not
Old
that
Gods,
serious.
but don't worry, it will slowly ramp up now.
Never
So
that
let's have a look
serious.
at Udyr, who reveals a little bit more about spirits. Freljord is full of warriors and shamans, but sometimes you can also find warrior shamans, who are known as spirit walkers. These individuals have a deep connection with the spirit of nature. Udyr was born under Blood Red Moon, and from a very early age, he showed signs of a spiritual connection. He could understand wolves' howls before he could speak, and he felt the raw emotions of nearby creatures.
Furry? Udyr confirmed?
Destined to become a spirit walker, he was taken in by the Winter's Claw. Although his mentors expected Udyr to master his powers with ease, the boy couldn't handle his gift. The chaotic thoughts of so many other living beings flooded his mind, bringing him to the point of insanity. Months passed and the Frost Guard raided his tribe, on the orders of a mysterious ice witch, who was obviously Lissandra. The Frost Guard was to eliminate anyone displaying hints of spiritual magic. Udyr...
They're just stuck in the past. We're gonna get to like Demacia, and it's gonna be some completely different. We're gonna get to Piltover. It's gonna be completely different. Zon is going like, bro, these people living in BC, bro.
He unleashed his fury in a spiritual explosion, shaking nearby mountaintops and summoning an avalanche that forced the Frost Guard to flee. Few survived this incident, And out of fear of his destructive power, the Winter's Claw was forced to abandon Udyr. Only one person in the entire tribe was willing to help him. It was an Iceborn woman that saw who Udyr really was. A man with strengths and flaws like any other. The two became close, and they cherished what little time they had together. Outside of their relationship, however, Udyr was used to being alone. Everyone feared him, and he kept it that way. So when one day a monk from a distant land approached his territory, Udyr lunged at him again and again, but the monk dodged all his attacks with ease. When it was obvious that this battle had no end, the monk introduced himself as Lee Sin, and Udyr found out that Lee Sin was dealing.
I had no idea that Lee Sin and Udyr were like connected. This makes so much sense.
With the exact same struggles. They both held dangerous powers that were hard to master. Udyr decided to stay in Ionia for a while, strengthening his understanding of spirits. He even trained under the elders of Hirana's temple. But eventually, the spirits of Freljord called him home. Udyr could feel something was off, and Freljord was...
They called him a hoe? Did I hear that correctly?
The spirits of Freljord called him home. Udyr could feel something was
home.
Off, and Freljord was in danger. So he bid farewell to Ionia and Lee Sin, and he set out to rejoin Winter's Claw, knowing not how he would be received. As you can see, Udyr's bio was left open, because we already know what happens next. So now, with the fundamentals down, let's have a look at the real meat of this video. Again,
I don't know what happens next.
The TLDR version of it, but let's have a look at the story, Silence for the Damned. The story begins with Udyr being back in Freljord. He was now traveling with Sejuani's band. In fact, Udyr was her personal shaman. The setting sun signaled a freezing night was coming, so they decided to start a camp. Udyr noticed Sejuani in the middle of her group, helping her bloodsworn warriors build a hut. Udyr smiled in pride. This was the leader they needed, one that worked and led from the front. Udyr remembered Sejuani as a small, bone-thin girl, so seeing her now as a mighty warrior was a pleasant surprise. Sejuani's warriors saw Udyr as a strange guy. Sometimes he talked to their horses, and sometimes their horses talked through him. Oftentimes, Udyr stepped a metal dagger into his hand.
Imagine like just turning around and seeing some guy like talking to your horse. I'd be like, y'all talking shit or what? Like,
the pain was enough to clear his mind from animal thoughts and give him back his human mind.
I don't think
the
he's getting it
building was close to the Ursine village. They were heading there not only because they
might be
needed
getting
allies,
the tea,
but also because of their own
survival. That's
they
for
had
sure.
no food and they were freezing. Normally they would just conquer the village, but they didn't have the soldiers.
What up, Levi?
And it didn't help that they had to cross a river to get to that village, and they likely wouldn't be able to get across without their help. Udyr tried to convince Sejuani that fighting is the right way, that her mother Kalkia would not accept defeat. But Sejuani still hated her mother for leaving her, so it was no
There
use.
it is.
The only option was talking, and Udyr wasn't happy about it, because the Ursine had a reputation for using the darkest kinds of magic. These people weren't even called shamans anymore. Instead, they were called the Lost Ones. Their leader was the Hounded Lord, a person whom Udyr knew very well. In the next scene, Udyr is found in his hut, trying to meditate. In Ionia it was quite easy, but it has been 3 weeks since he successfully meditated in Freljord. In his mind he pictured a tree with blood-red leaves. But his imagination was interrupted by his surroundings. First, it was the animals. The thoughts of nearby Elnuk, Druvasks, and horses flooded his consciousness with feelings that weren't his own. It was a thunderous rumble only the most powerful spirit walkers could hear. Next were the emotions of men. He could feel anger, fear, bitterness, and cold.
Actually
like
choked.
Voices that tried to outscream
And I actually choked.
Udyr desperately searched his bag for the metal shard. When he finally found it, he stabbed it into his palm again and again. He would give anything to quiet the voices. The scene then cuts to the night of the same day. Sejuani put every...
Yo, thanks for the follow. Oh my god!
They constructed a massive bonfire and prepared a ritual to contact the Ursine. The problem was that they had to burn a lot of their resources to do it. But again, they had no other option. The ritual itself was a hint of who the Ursine really were. Sejuani had to gather oath singers that would sing an unnatural hum that harmonized with the fire's roar. But while they were singing, they got covered in bear blood and guts. And on top of that, they had to cut open their own chests with bear totems.
Bro,
this
what the f?
The Red Blessing. It was a ritual that struck fear.
I wasn't screaming at you.
Sejuani's own heart. Even
I wasn't screaming at you. I was screaming at the ad. I got an ad, and every time it comes up, I get mad. Thanks to the follow. I appreciate it. It wasn't. I wasn't screaming at you.
She felt that this wasn't just a normal summoning call, so she ordered her guards to bring her Udyr, because in the distance, a great lightning storm approached. By the time Udyr arrived to stand beside Sejuani, her army was fully armed again and they stood ready to face the Earthside. Their encounter approached in waves. At first there was a static charge. Tiny sparks of lightning jumped between the weapons and shields of the Winter's Claw warriors. Then, first of the Earthsign approached them from the shadows of a nearby forest. They were savages. Some were naked. Others were covered in bear hides or rotting remains of clothes.
Naked
Next
in the
came the
Freljord?
beasts. Most of them were bears of various sizes and colors. These were spirit walkers trapped in the form of the unrelenting bear. Men who had forgotten they were men. But then came the monsters. They were amalgamations of bears and other creatures.
That looks so ugly.
Now these were men before too, but now they were so consumed by the true spirit. They had passed beyond normal animals. The biggest of them was a huge bear with a decayed elk skull with a mane of black feathers.
Oh
When it
yes,
opened its
Volley
jaw,
has
it revealed
a
child's
skin like
face
this.
inside its maw. Then the child
That one's
opened
cool.
its mouth and it spewed foul brown liquid. Other nightmares like this one followed from the
Ew!
woods, limping, crawling, and shambling forward. A moment later, Udyr could feel what others could not. All the voices in his head grew softer, and their emotions became suppressed. Even the feelings of Sejuani, for the Volibear had come. In the forest behind Najak, the great black leaf trees crackled and shook. Taller than a mammoth, it stepped out of the woods. Each limb, larger than a man, propelled the beast forward. Its broken ancient armor of dark metal plate was caked brown by the dried gore of hundreds of battles. Broken weapons rusted with age jutted from its back and shoulders. One half of its face had been stripped of flesh, revealing oily bone, teeth and horns. From its mouth, an unnatural black blood dribbled. Its four eyes, impossibly ancient, alien and pitiless, looked over Sejuani and Udyr. As the bear spirit's avatar came closer, it was like the quiet at the center of a storm. Udyr's mind was suddenly quiet. No animals, no feelings. Even Udyr's own thoughts barely whispered. He felt only the Volibear.
He probably felt so out of place.
Like a man or animal. The Volibear's consciousness crushed everything with its purity. While Sejuani embraced the mystical creature before her, and she steeled her heart as the avatar of the bear spirit slowly approached, Udyr fought against the silence in his head by trying to remember childhood stories. When the Volibear finally stopped in front of them,
they probably went insane a little bit.
The Volibear now flooded Udyr's mind and overwhelmed him. He could feel the words bursting from inside him.
What battle is worthy of us? War child.
The voice echoed from every spirit walker on the
What
field.
the
It boomed from the Hounded Lord the most. Sejuani froze in surprise as she heard Udyr whisper the same question. I ask for your strength.
No worries,
Sejuani
Super.
replied before Udyr forced himself forward. A second later, Udyr started
Volibear spoke to my chair and
he
said,
managed to
sit.
stumble between Sejuani and the great bear spirit. With all his will, he stabbed his hand, but he felt nothing. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words would come. Instead, the Volibear's consciousness shook him, forcing him to his knees.
Whom do you offer a sacrifice?
In his last desperate attempt, Udyr pictured Ionian hills in his mind, and he let his mind slip entirely out of his body. Now surrounded by lively red leaves of Ionian nature, Udyr spoke freely. Speaking aloud, he denied any offerings to the spirit, proclaiming that they offer only the war and its dead. With that, the Volibear roared in anger as the spell broke. Whatever magic there was that charmed everyone surrounding it was now gone, and Sejuani witnessed the real horror before her. Lightning raged from the creature as if it was about to explode. But all
No!
Sejuani's fear wasn't inspired by it. Her fear came from the realization that she almost pledged her people to the Earthside. That was the true power of the Volibear, and she admired Udyr for being able to stand against it. The Volibear then moved to attack, but before it could strike, Sejuani rode straight at it, blocking its path.
Oh my god.
Udyr shouted his last question. He wanted to know if it would fight alongside them, or if it fears their war. The beast then roared again.
We fear nothing.
Okay. Alright.
The scene then cuts to the Winter's Claw sieging
Alright.
the river town, the home of the Lost Ones.
Not even a hate
Seemed
thread?
like those Ursine warriors
Alright.
who put some of their senses together joined Sejuani in her war.
I'll check out the
With their
2022
combined
cinematic
forces,
after
they got
this.
all the way to the heart of the city. There sat the great beast spirit, surrounded by dozens of impaled corpses.
We'll see.
with
Olaf
black
and then the
tentacles spreading across the
2022
ground like
cinematic?
worms. The Volibear's flesh was healed now, and with its dozen of new eyes, it looked at Udyr. It was talking directly to him now.
I will be reborn. You cannot stop that, son of man.
Udyr
Bro, what
removed
the
his cloak and cycled through his forms. There was an eagle, lynx, the iron boar, even a bear matching the Volibear's form. But he stopped
Ooh.
at its greatest enemy, the great ram of the forge. Udyr would give everything to win this battle. He was sworn to protect Sejuani, as any other father would. This was a massive twist. Not only do we now know that Udyr is Sejuani's father, which means that Sejuani isn't a political child. Her mother had to get married while already pregnant. But also, we learned that the Volibear is something totally new. I think the Volibear in this story wasn't the actual demigod. This was probably just his avatar. We might have to dig deeper into this later. But I believe that Volibear was corrupted by the Void. Not only does this new horror theme heavily fit that, remember that during the Icathian War, the Ascended corrupted by the Void were
he was like,
you know, it's
he's like, anyway, so, Udyr is Sejuani's dad. Like, what? Like, what?
From its bones, with morphed faces and extra limbs. Exactly like the Volibear in this story. But the Void is also completely silent. The Void is all about silencing all noises. That is its purpose.
What?
So this
Oh yeah, it's a void.
That Volibear got corrupted.
A black hole.
It even fits the timeline. When Ornn fought Volibear in his story, that was many years before the bridge was built and the Watchers influenced Runeterra. So back then, he was still the solid demigod bear. But after Lissandra kinda doomed the entire planet, I think Volibear might have become a victim. One thing is certain, and that is that the Void is directly linked to the Darkin. So I know exactly where the comment section will be heading.
Oh, what?
Hey!
Wait, what?
One thing is certain, and that is that the Void is directly linked to the Darkin. So I know exactly where the comment section will be heading.
Deadass? Udyr was a hoe. It turns out it was. Yup, there it is. Yes, Sejuani, I am your father, Darth Udyr. Lee Sin accidentally saved Freljord by taking Udyr to Ionia. Udyr being Sejuani's dad is so interesting. I'm not so sure Udyr is Sejuani's father. The actual line is he had sworn an oath to protect Sej as a father would. So I was not supposed to say one way or another is sound interpretation, but the main reason makes it seem like he'd protect her like she was a child rather than being Udyr's daughter. Okay, that makes sense. So let's watch the 2022 cinematic. I don't know if I've seen this either. That's Ornn, baby. Okay. Sejuani. Yeah, I think I have. I want to know the story between them two. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Oh, that's Rek'Sai. No, it's not, I think. I don't know. Pantheon. Olaf. Oh, there it is. I don't know Talia's story either. Yeah, that is Rek'Sai. Dude, Kai'Sa's so fucking cool. You can't tell me, like, the Kai'Sa's not, like, one of the coolest characters ever. Oh, shit! There it is! Okay. Oh, there she is. She said, hey, bitch, what's up? You want to scrap? You want to go, bitch? He's like, all right, fine, let's do it. Bro, she whooping ass. I'm not gonna lie. Got that little kitten heel on. Oh, Girl, what the fuck is that? Yo, this direction. What the hell? I don't know any Olaf lore. Nice. Damn, what the f. Oh my god, I just got goosebumps! So cool. Ooh. Very nice. Ooh. Wait, you killed Woolly Bear there? I don't think so. Is Rek'Sai like hunting down Kaisa? Is that what that is? Those were weird ritual shamans? Oh, okay. I thought that was Volibear. I was like, hold on. There's no way she just killed Volibear there. Yo, that was sick. Wow, I really just got goosebumps there. Volibear followers, just like Volibear wannabes. Why did Sylas travel to Freljord? Watch this. Yeah, I can imagine that LOR expanded the lore heavily. I mean, they have to. It's a lot.
To the world of League of Legends. His arrival set up an incredibly good story that hasn't stopped moving forward to this
Okay,
day.
Sylas.
And let me remind you that Sylas has been around for a year now. In his latest story, after Sylas managed to escape the Demacian prison, and after his major
I actually want to learn about
accidentally killed
Sylas.
King Jarvan III, Sylas decided to venture north, where the
Okay.
next chapter of the Demacian storyline begins. And because it is not the shortest story, let's get right into it.
Alright, let's go.
The story begins by introducing two new characters. Thorva, sister of Frost, who is riding a Druvask boar, just like Sejuani, and
What a
Skarmother
copycat.
Vrina of Winter's Claw, whom you may remember from Legends of Runeterra. Even though
Yeah.
Vrina was a respected, ruthless veteran with a bloody history, Thorva wasn't awed by her presence. Although Thorva's name wasn't as well known across Freljord, she was a shamanka, one who dreamed the will of the Old Gods. And even
Okay.
the most powerful matriarchs in the Freljord
There's
were
the
wise
Demacia
to
story
respect
backstory
the
before
old faith.
Sylas.
After a day
Oh,
of marching
true.
east towards the Avarosan territory, the Winter's Claw raid finally took a break to stretch their limbs. Thorva sensed a storm coming, but Vrina didn't respond to her warning. Instead, she continued
It'll all
scouting
come full
south
circle,
with
though.
her one good eye. Vrina
You know what I
mentioned
mean?
that she can see something in the distance, but when Thorva joined her, she couldn't see anything. Vrina mocked her that even though Thorva had two eyes, she was more blind than Vrina. This little interaction ignited deep hatred in Thorva, revealing that she was quick to anger. And she
There's
forced
always
herself
beef
to take a
between
deep breath to
two
calm
female
down.
characters all
Here
the
the
time.
story revealed that Thorva joined the raid party uninvited. Initially, Vrina protested against her, but with her connection to the Old Gods of Freljord,
said,
the shamanka clearly had a reason to come as
Tifty,
well. But
thanks
to
for
that
the invite,
moment,
bitch.
Vrina still didn't know why the gods wanted Thorva to join them. Vrina pointed at a rocky cliff in the distance, and Thorva finally saw as well. There was a lone figure, little more than a shadow against the snow. An itching sensation prickled the back of Thorva's neck, and she sensed there was something strange about that figure. Vrina knew it couldn't be an Avarosan scout, because they marched right through the icy winds. Not even a child of Freljord would make that mistake. The only other option was that it was a trader from the south. After all, the Avarosans traded with the Southerners instead of taking from them. After that realization, Vrina simply turned her Druvask around so they could keep going. But Thorva stayed behind. She mentioned that they might have been spotted, but Vrina replied that this fool won't survive the coming storm anyway. That didn't make Thorva's itching sensation go away. And so, when Vrina asked Thorva if she's coming with them, Thorva replied no, and she started marching towards the figure. After she left, Brokvar Ironfist, another member of the raid, insisted that they had to go after her. The gods would bring ruin upon them if anything happened to their shamanka. Brokvar was an iceborn, and so he wielded the legendary blade called Winter's Wail.
No, these are cocoa set. They're like coconut, like coffee flavored wafers. They're made by Nestle. Yeah, they're really good. They're like a Hispanic thing.
Weapon infused with
Latin
true
food.
ice, which means that no
It's
one,
really
not
good.
even Vrina, besides the Iceborn, could wield it. To anyone else, it would bring insufferable pain. Vrina herself wasn't superstitious, but some of her warriors, including Brokvar, were, and so, against her better judgment, Vrina signaled the raiding party to follow Thorva. As the raid kept following the stranger, Vrina realized more and more how unprepared they were for the frozen tundra. Had she rode away, that stranger would die within an hour. As Thorva got closer to the outsider, she noticed it was a man wrapped in furs that carried no weapons. There was only a pair of chains attached to a curious design clamped around his wrists. The story shifted to the perspective of
Sylas,
Sylas
of course.
Dreadbore. Sylas underestimated the sheer hostility of the Freljordian landscape. He knew there was great magical power in the north, and now he could practically feel it in his bones. But it still seemed like a mistake to come here. He had a dozen hand-picked mages with him on this expedition.
I don't know anything about Sylas. Like, I didn't know he was from Demacia. I don't know anything about this guy. Alright, guys, I literally know nothing about League lore.
But they had all fallen one by one, claimed by the blizzard and the savage beasts. He thought the barbarians would be the main threat, but Sylas had
3 chapters deep into the chronology of his storyline. Damn. That's okay though. Sometimes I like bouncing back and forth, because then you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't mind just kind of watching this.
hadn't seen a single living soul in weeks. And
Maybe
it's
he'll
not
explain
like
it
they came
too.
here unprepared. They had plenty of furs, food, weapons, and stolen Demacian coin to spare. They even brought a furred oxen with them. But none of it withstood the harsh climate. Only Sylas remained by sheer force of will. Here we learned that Sylas learned about the ancient magic of the north from one of the books Lux brought him to his cell, when he was still a Demacian prisoner. And unfortunately, he was stubborn enough to follow that power.
Yeah.
But his stubbornness wasn't enough to overcome the cold. He was approaching his limits, as his hands and toes started turning black. Sometime back, he saw a column of riders in the distance, but he wasn't sure if he imagined it. He knew that to stop was to die, so he kept marching until his body finally gave up, and he fell face first into the snow.
Bruh. Double bruh.
Thorva shook her head as she saw the outsider fall, and she urged her Druvask forward. As she approached Sylas, she had a chance to inspect him. Once again, she wondered about the chain.
No shot. They played his fucking... his death... Is that his death idol? That's fucking hilarious.
If he was a prisoner, where did he escape from? The Avarosans wouldn't chain someone this way, so he had to come from over the distant mountains in the south. Thorva grabbed her staff with both hands.
Okay, so Demacia is fairly close to...
It was a difficult task since Sylas's shackles were incredibly heavy. And again, Thorva inspected the chains. She had traveled across the entire Freljord, but she had never seen a white stone similar to the shackles. There was something unsettling about it. And when she realized that the chains were made in a way so that they could never be removed, it became clear the man must have committed a terrible crime. As Thorva knelt there in the snow
I have no
beside
idea.
Sylas,
I don't know.
she wondered why had she been guided here. The gods had clearly brought her here, just as they had directed her in the past. But she didn't know why. Was she meant to save the dying man before her? Or was the thing the man brought with him important? She quickly made her decision, and she reached for the bonds. But before she was even able to touch the pale stone, her fingers began to tingle, and Sylas's eyes snapped open. Thorva tried to summon her god-given powers, but as Sylas grabbed her arm, she felt those powers being drained from her. Her body felt cold, a sensation which she hadn't felt in years, and she fell, unable to breathe or move or do anything. As the cold took her, she saw colors return to the stranger's face, as if he was warmed by hearth. There was a hint of a smile on his lips as he thanked her. Vrina cursed as she saw the shamanka fall, and with her roll, the raiding party moved forward. The ground was now shaking beneath the thundering charge, with the sound of an avalanche.
You just left her
Rina
there?
saw the outsider kneeling beside Thorva, and she was surprised to see the man took off his fur to drape it over the fallen shamanka. It was a strangely kind gesture.
I was about to say, like,
Sylas
that's just
then
a
stood
dick
and
move,
faced
man.
the
Like,
earth-shaking approach. Seeing the force that was now charging towards him, he stepped away from the fallen shamanka, and he held his hands up to show he bore no weapons. But Vrina didn't care. Without a signal, Vrina's warriors fanned out.
Vrina didn't care. Vrina does not give a
fuck between the riders. He showed no fear. But what was even more curious, he threw away his fur, and yet he didn't seem to feel the cold. Vrina ordered one of her riders to approach the fallen shamanka. Then she introduced herself.
Questioning.
The man in front of her just cocked his head to one side, and he responded in a tongue she could not understand. Vrina cursed. You don't understand me, do you? She asked. And again, the man gave her a questioning look. Sylas, he replied, tapping his chest. Vrina understood that was probably his name. The warrior attending the shamanka confirmed that she was half frozen, but she wasn't dead yet. This made the riders confused. The Sisters of Frost were supposed to be immune to the cold. That was their gift from the Old Gods. But now, Thorva was freezing while the stranger stood before them with bare skin. All Vrina trusted was steel, fire and blood, but she knew her warriors would see this as some kind of omen. Sylas then shouted something in his tongue again, but Vrina ignored it. She would rather kill this fool quickly and be on her way. But before she could do anything, Brokvar interrupted her. He offered to kill the stranger himself. The outsider killed their shamanka. It would be an honor to punish the man. Vrina raised her eyebrow, and with a shrug, she let him have his way. And so Brokvar dropped off his mount, and he marched towards Sylas with the legendary Winter's Wail in his hand.
Bro, Sylas just gonna one-shot him and then heal back to full health.
Memories, specifically to one where she was 6 years old. That was the last time she had truly felt the cold. She was chasing a snow hare out onto a frozen lake. She was laughing, until she realized that the ice beneath her started to
that guy.
Moments later, she plunged into the icy black depths. The bone-chilling cold drove all air from her lungs, and her limbs stiffened in agonizing cramps. She died that day, and she stayed dead for long minutes, before her tribe's shaman pulled her out and poured life back into her. She first manifested her god's given power that night.
That looks
the shaman
so cool.
told young Thorva that sometimes those who were brought back from the realm beyond change. Realm beyond being capitalized. And it seemed like the gods have decided to bless her.
like fucking heaven or whatever.
In the days that followed, Thorva found herself impervious to cold, being able
Realm
to
beyond,
walk
I like
through
how
freezing
they
blizzards
called that.
bare-skinned with no ill effect. That was the past. But now, Thorva once
Sorry
again
about that,
found
Kobe.
herself sinking into the cold. Only this time, there wasn't anyone who could pull her back up. As life left her, she wondered, why was she brought here? Was her purpose to give her life to the outsider, so that they could fulfill the god's task? Suddenly she felt fear that slowed her descent into the darkness. Even if the gods wanted the outsider to take her place, Thorva knew that Vrina wouldn't allow them to live, and so Thorva began to fight back towards the surface.
Bruh. Dude, now okay, this is getting annoying.
Brokvar Iron Fist went straight for the killing blow, Winter's Wail hissing through the air. That blow would have split an ice troll in half, but Sylas was surprisingly quick, even with his massive shackles. He stepped back and whipped his chains
There it
to
is.
Brokvar, barely missing him as the Iceborne warrior snarled in fury. Brokvar was exceptionally fast for such a big man, and he was able to land a powerful backhand punch across the side of Sylas's head, a punch that sent him flying. Sylas struggled to get himself off the ground as Brokvar marched toward him, but finally, he regained his footing, which actually impressed him.
I'm back!
But still, Vrina knew he was just delaying the inevitable outcome. As the enemy approached, Sylas focused on the barbarian's weapon. A pale ice shard in its hilt was glowing brightly. Its magic was primal and dangerous, unlike anything he had seen before. It was almost intoxicating. With a roar, Sylas lashed his chains at Brokvar in a flurry of arcs. One of the swings hit Brokvar's head, and his helmet was torn off. Brokvar shook his long hair loose, spat blood into the snow, and continued his advance. The next time the chains flew at him, Brokvar let them whip around his massive forearm, and he grabbed the metal links to pull Sylas right into his swinging elbow. The hit brought Sylas to the ground again, and the Iceborne warrior was ready to deliver the killing blow with his blade. That's when a voice interrupted them, and Brokvar paused. Vrina looked around to see the Sister of Frost, Thorva, pale and at the brink of death, leaning on her staff and shuffling through the snow. To everyone present, this was madness, but Thorva called it the will of gods. While the barbarian
will
was
of gods.
distracted, Sylas seized his chance. He quickly whipped his chains around his opponent's weapon, and he tore it.
Next time I'm at work, I'm just gonna like the last hour when I'm like really struggling and I really want to leave. I'm gonna be like, I'm using the will of the gods
From
to
the
get through
man's
this
grasp.
shift right now.
It landed in the snow nearby, and Sylas quickly leapt after it. With a wide grin, Sylas picked up the broadsword, and agony seared through him. Vrina shook her head at the fool. After all, only an Iceborn could hold a true ice weapon.
Actually,
To anyone
only an
else, it
Iceborn
was a
can
death
hold-
sentence. Sylas released the weapon from his grip and he dropped to his knees. His limb started to freeze. It began with his hand, but it steadily moved its way down his arm and towards his heart.
Oh,
Vrina laughed and she asked if this was supposed to be the will of gods. Brokvar picked up Winter's Wail without harm, and Sylas stared at him in anguish and confusion. Vrina told Brokvar to put him out of his misery, but
Yeah, I know,
Brokvar
I'm-
first looked towards their
I'm pretty good at
shamanka
it.
for approval. She replied that if the gods want him saved, they will intervene. Thorva
There it
served
is.
the Old Gods of Freljord, but she didn't claim to know their will. Nor had she often seen them intervene directly in mortal matters. Sylas was dying, but even in death his will to fight was strong. He was on the ground, shivering like
so is Sylas like, what's going on here?
the lesser born
Like,
of
I don't-
Demacia.
I do not
And
understand
the
this
thought
man.
of that alone ignited anger. Anger that now fueled him. And with his last burst of dying breath, he sprang off the ground and grabbed the Freljordian warrior around his throat. Ancient raw
damn.
elemental magic instantly began to infuse him. Sylas may have been unable to hold the true ice weapon, but he could still draw from its power, using the barbarian's flesh as its conduit. A moment later,
What?
the barbarian staggered back, unsure of what just happened. Sylas's eyes now glue with icy pale light, and with his newfound power, he was able to reverse the creeping ice on his arm, and it now crept away until it was fully gone.
Oh my
Then
god,
he
it like
turned back towards the barbarian.
he
At
put it
this
on his
point,
throat.
Everyone present stared at Sylas in awe. Vrina wondered if he was also an Iceborn, but Thorva explained that he is something else. Vrina had enough, however. She stood up in her saddle, and she threw her spear with all her might. With a simple gesture of his hand, Sylas summoned a wall of ice that blocked the spear, and then it collapsed moments later.
Ooh.
After that, Sylas started laughing as he was getting ready to unleash what these icy powers were truly capable of. But as a spinning orb of magic gathered between his hands, the shamanka shouted something Vrina couldn't understand. To her surprise, the shamanka spoke the language of the stranger. Thorva and Sylas talked for a
shit.
while, until Vrina lost her patience and she demanded to know what was happening. Thorva translated that according to Sylas, they shared a common enemy. Not the Avarosans, but his own people, the Demacians across the mountains. Vrina
Oh,
snapped
shit.
back that he is a traitor.
Wait, so the Freljord and the Demacians, they don't like each other?
Then why would they even trust a traitor? And that's when Sylas made his offer. He knew about hidden pathways into his homeland, places that flow with gold and silver, fields untouched by snow. It didn't sound like much, but these riches were what the Winter's Claw raided for. And yet, there was some doubt. Vrina wasn't sure if he was telling the truth, but that's when Thorva convinced her with a lie. Thorva said that Sylas had a vision, a dream about 3 Freljordian sisters. They urged him to come here. Brokvar
Oh.
immediately took the bait, and he
Is he talking about Lissandra, Avarosa, and that other bitch?
exclaimed that the 3 sisters must be Avarosa, Serilda, and Lissandra.
There it
After
is.
that, wonder spread throughout the rest of the warriors, as
Serilda.
the legends of the 3 sisters were well known across the north. And yet, Vrina still remained skeptical. It seemed like she was suspecting a lie. So
Yeah,
she
Relda
ordered
is,
that Sylas had to
she's
prove himself
sus.
first. He will come
Good.
with them on their raid. If he fights
Good.
well, they will listen to more of what he has to say. But
Okay,
Vrina made sure
period.
that everyone knows that Sylas would be Thorva's responsibility. She will have to control him, and she will answer for his potential crimes. Thorva then carefully looked Sylas up and down. He was handsome for a southerner, a little lean for her tastes, but he was clever,
Okay.
and there was power in him. She then pointed at Sylas with the words, "Never touch me again." Sylas smiled wryly and replied, "Not without your permission." Thorva turned
Oh.
away so he couldn't see her smile. She then told Vrina that the stranger agrees to the terms. And so the group moved out.
Insatiable Riz! Insatiable
And
Riz!
that was the story that is about to begin.
He
a new
rizzed her
chapter
up,
in
bro.
The world of League of Legends. Two interesting things to note here. First of all, obviously Sylas will probably get his alliance with the Winter's Claw.
Not too shabby, though. Alright. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a day there for Freljord. I think I kind of just learned enough.